Good morning and welcome to the Cradle-to-Career's Governing Board meeting. My name is Gavin Payne. I serve as chair of the Governing Board, which is meeting in person today at the California Cradle-to-Career Data Systems offices at 400 R Street in Sacramento. I want to welcome and thank the members of the public who have joined us in person and virtually. Today we have ASL interpreters helping us interpret the meeting. Thank you very much, Daisy and Paula. We will also be offering translation services in Spanish. Thank you, Leticia and Mark, for your help today. Now, to listen to comments given in Spanish, please select the More option at the bottom of the screen that says Interpretation, then select Spanish, and you'll hear a live rendering of the comments in Spanish. So I will pause now for a moment for our Spanish interpreter to translate.
Sure, thank you very much. Good morning to everyone. Muy buenos días a todos. Les voy a dar un poco de instrucciones para cómo acceder a la junta esta mañana en español. Para usted poder escuchar los comentarios en español, por favor seleccione la opción Más o More en la parte inferior de la pantalla donde dice Interpretación. A continuación, seleccione Interpretación de idiomas, el audio y español. Así, usted podrá escuchar la interpretación en vivo de los comentarios en español. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much. Back to you.
Thank you, Leticia. So for all members speaking today, we ask that when you introduce yourselves and say your job title or affiliation, please say your name slowly, unlike what I've been doing so far. And then pause briefly before proceeding with your comments. I'll begin and try. Gavin Payne, chair. And so now if we can move on, a little bit more housekeeping. We acknowledge today that this meeting is taking place throughout the unceded territory of California, home to nearly 200 tribal nations. I'm joining today from Sacramento, the traditional land of the Maidu, Miwok, and Nisenan people whose presence, past, present, and future, we honor and respect. We'll now pause for a moment to reflect on that. Thank you. We recognize the ancestral land on which we're collectively gathered and our responsibility to support and foster learning through the dissemination of knowledge consistent with our Cradle-to-Career Systems work to advance equity. We hope this acknowledgement encourages individuals to think about what it means to occupy space on Indigenous lands, and we invite attendees to learn more about the ancestral lands on which they reside here at native-land.ca. So a couple more housekeeping things really quick before we get onto the fun stuff. C2C just recently celebrated its 5-year anniversary, and to commemorate this milestone, this meeting itself will be particularly engaging. We'll have the opportunity at this meeting to reflect back and to look forward and to celebrate the many future opportunities that we will have and we'll be able to continue to work together towards. Today's meeting, as always, will be run by the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act. We've got 12 items on the agenda, and all companion materials are posted on the C2C website. Prior to today's meeting, we received 2 written comments. As is customary, I'll let members of the public know when we will be accepting public comments. So if a member of the public in the room would like to make a public comment, please do us the courtesy of providing a speaker slip to Stephanie Gutierrez-Valdez. We anticipate breaking for a 45-minute lunch around 12:20, and we plan to have 2 15-minute breaks throughout the day, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. We anticipate also adjourning at about 4:20 p.m. So with that, I want to call the meeting to order. And Stephanie, please call the roll.
Chair Payne.
Here.
Vice Chair Tagorda.
Here.
Designee Upton Villa for Member Cabalden.
Here.
Member Cifuentes. Member Cifuentes.
Here.
Member Elias.
Here.
Member Evans.
Here.
Member Ferjueli.
Here.
Member Gonzalez Vasquez.
Here.
Member Hetz.
Here.
Designee Roderick for Member Irwin.
Here.
Member Jez. Member Lee.
Here.
Member Moldoff.
Here.
Member Nellum.
Here.
Member Romero. Designee Rika Cheska for California Health and Human Services. Member Skull.
Here.
Member Soublé.
Here.
Member Sullivan. Member Van Natten.
Here.
And Member Vu.
Here.
For the clarity of the record, we have 17 members present. We have a quorum.
Marvelous. Thank you very much. Okay, so now on to the fun stuff. As we start today's meeting, I want to acknowledge that we have a new board member. Since we last met, Governor Newsom has appointed Elizabeth Elias as Chief of the California Bureau of Post-Secondary Education. Member Elias has been involved with our work and previously served as former Member Cochran's designee on this board and sits in her seat now. So we're very happy to announce that she'll continue to be involved in the work in the new role. Congratulations. And I look forward to continuing to work with you. If you'd like to say a couple of things before we jump up and swear you in.
Thank you. And good morning, everyone. I'm really honored to be joining the Cradle-to-Career Governing Board as the Bureau's representative. And I look forward to working together as we move forward. The Cradle-to-Career Governing Board and staff have done some amazing work that I'm proud to be part of.
Thank you. Okay, joining us today is Secretary of Government Operations, Nick Maduros, who will do the official swearing in. Thank you for joining us today. I think now we go up and we do this.
All right. Put your hand there and make your other hand. There you go. Right. I'll just say. I
Elizabeth Elias,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for that. And again, welcome aboard. Now we are moving on to agenda item 3, which is the elections for the governing board chair and vice chair. For this, I invite Director Bates to facilitate and to take charge of this item.
All right, thank you, Chair Payne, and good morning, everyone. During this agenda item, we will walk through the 2026 elections for chair and vice chair. The governance manual states the governing board will elect a chair and vice chair to serve one-year terms at the first meeting of the fiscal year, and they may not be from the same institution. All members were invited to run for either position and provide the office with a statement of interest to declare their candidacy. The office received 3 statements of interest. Today, we will be taking this item in 2 parts. First, we will be voting on chair, followed by vice chair. Before the vote, each candidate for that position will have a minute or 2 to express their interest. And from there, I will be asking for a motion and a second, and we will proceed to a roll call vote. Members, it's important to note that a candidate must receive 14 votes to pass this governing board's voting threshold. All right, the office received 1 statement of interest for chair from Gavin Payne, which can be found in attachment A for the staff report. As mentioned, prior to calling a motion, candidates will be invited to make a statement addressing the board.
Thank you all. I appreciate it. I'll keep it brief. I appreciate what this represents in terms of continuity, and I'm honored and grateful to continue working with this board.
All right, before I ask for a motion, any questions from members? And then I would be pleased to ask for a motion.
Board Member Brian Soublé, I move to approve Gavin Payne for chair of the board.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Board Member Meredith Lee.
Okay, with a motion and a second, let's pause for public comment. I don't have any speaker slips for this agenda item. Is there anyone in the room here in Sacramento who would like to comment? All right, seeing none, let's move to Zoom. Stephanie Gutierrez Valdez.
For members of the public attending via Zoom, please raise your hand at this time if you would like to comment on this agenda item. Seeing no raised hands, that closes public comment.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. For the clarity of the record, the motion is to move to approve Gavin Payne for chair of the board. Stephanie Gutierrez Valdez, please do a roll call vote.
Chair Payne,
Aye.
Vice Chair Tagorda,
Aye.
Designee obtained via from Member Cabalden,
Aye.
Member Cifuentes.
Aye.
Member Elias,
Aye.
Member Evans,
Aye.
Member Ferjueli,
Aye.
Member Gonzalez Vasquez,
Aye.
Member Hetz,
Aye.
Designee Roderick for Member Irwin,
Aye.
Member Jez, Member Lee,
Aye.
Member Moldoff,
Aye.
Member Nellum,
Aye.
Member Romero, Designee Rika Cheska for California Health and Human Services, Member Skull,
Aye.
Member Soublé,
Aye.
Member Sullivan, Member Van Etten,
Aye.
Member Vu.
Aye.
For the clarity of the record, we have 17 ayes.
Thank you. The motion passes. Wonderful. Moving on to the next one, the office received 2 statements of interest for vice chair from Robert Tagorda and from Jessica Moldoff, which can be found in attachment B in the corresponding staff report. As we did with the chair section, we will now be hearing statements of interest from each candidate, followed by a motion and a second. Vice Chair Tagorda, let's begin with you.
Thank you. I just want to thank the members of the board for this opportunity to humbly present my candidacy once again for vice chair of the governing board. I have 3 points I'd like to make to advance my candidacy. First, as a gubernatorial appointee, I have the ability to mediate impartially among all of us here. And I think I place great pride in my ability to be able to facilitate objective discussions amongst all of us, to help our office establish a balanced set of priorities and represent all of our interests, whether it's here in this room or in public, all interests of our board with even-handedness. Throughout my 5 years with you, since the inception of C2C, I've been entrusted with numerous leadership roles. I've been able to chair all of our major committees, many of them from the ground up, getting them established and set up, developing a culture and a set of norms by which we govern ourselves and make good decisions. And my experience with our strategic plan, both the previous one and this current one, our governance manual, our advisory boards, numerous other initiatives that we've had on the board, I felt a great deal of honor carrying out these duties and responsibilities, raising my hand to step up to support our governing board. And I hope once again to earn your support in this capacity. I will also say not only is my independence an institutional one, but it's also an experiential one. As you're all aware, I'm not from Sacramento. I don't work in Sacramento. I'm out in the field. Professionally, I'm with students, I'm with families, I'm with educators, both K-12 and higher education, in Los Angeles on a day-to-day basis, in one of the most diverse parts of our state, representative of the demographics that we serve here on this board. And, I'm also not afraid to say I'm not a data person. I'm not a technician. I'm a user of the tools. I'm a beneficiary of the tools that we strive to put together here in this governing board. I'll tell you, I had a recent experience with numerous partnerships of K-12 districts and higher education institutions in Los Angeles County. And these are colleagues of mine who serve students on a day-to-day basis. And I informed them of the great privilege that they have to create and develop these partnerships and pathway programs for students at this particular point in time. Because when I started that work in Long Beach Unified School District in 2008, we didn't have a student pathways dashboard. We had to share data amongst our institutions. And to now be able to support this group of partnerships in LA County and proudly say that I've had a hand in helping to shape what they're seeing on that dashboard every day and that they're using is a great privilege. And it really emphasized for me this notion that what we work on is the people's data. And that I feel that I come to our meetings bringing these experiences and these connections to those whom we serve in the state. Lastly, I feel it's important for me to bring my candidacy to all of you because I represent steady leadership during a period of transition here in California. A new governor is awaiting us. We have changes in the legislature already in motion. We have countless fiscal challenges, political challenges, policy challenges, both here within the state and from outside of our state. And amidst these significant shifts, I feel it's vital for us to have stability and consistency in our leadership to navigate our new strategic plan, to keep our eyes on the North Star. We need to shepherd these goals and priorities through these uncertain times. And so I would be honored to serve once again as your vice chair. And I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. I now invite Member Moldoff to share her statement of interest.
Good morning. Jessica Moldoff from the California Student Aid Commission. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak on this. I also want to thank Robert for his steadiness and his consistency of leadership. I have been considering submitting my nomination for a little bit, but I guess I feel especially compelled now to try to go forward because of this transition period for Cradle-to-Career, because it really is coming to a point where the data system needs to prove itself, and I don't think anyone who's been on this board has not been aware of my very strong opinions about how we should really be using data to alleviate administrative burden. It's something that I've been doing a lot at my role at the Student Aid Commission, and it's something that I've really, like, basically at the Student Aid Commission, my main goals, my kind of like leading principles has been actionable data and also automating processes. And I think there's a lot of opportunity to do those things with Cradle-to-Career. And I believe I would bring a lot of enthusiasm to this position and really thinking about where to kind of take things to the next level. Now that we do have these tools that are well-grounded, we have all this data that's connected, really trying to figure out in partnership with the chair and with the executive director, really just seeing more what we can really do with the data, both from a public perspective in building strong dashboards, but also with data providers in order to really move the needle in ways that maybe students and families can't see, but they're definitely going to feel. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Moldoff. All right, next slide, please. So at this time, I'd welcome any questions from members or a motion in support of one of the candidates.
Morning again, Board Member Soublé. I'd move to approve Robert DeGorder for Vice Chair of the Board.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. With a motion and a second, before we vote, let's pause for public comment. I have no speaker slips for this agenda item. Is there anyone in the room in Sacramento who would like to provide public comment? Seeing none, we'll go over to Zoom. Stephanie Gutierrez Valdez.
For members of the public attending via Zoom, please raise your hand at this time if you would like to make a public comment. Okay, seeing no raised hands, that closes the public comment period.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. And for the clarity of the record, the motion is to, if we can, sorry, go back to display the motion slide. Apologies. The motion is to approve Robert Tagorda for Vice Chair of the Board. So we have a motion and a second. Stephanie Gutierrez Valdez, please do a roll call vote.
Chair Payne.
Aye.
Vice Chair Tagorda.
Aye.
Designee obtained via for Member Cabaldon.
Aye.
Member Cifuentes.
Abstain.
Member Elias.
Aye.
Member Evans.
Aye.
Member Ferjueli.
Aye.
Member Gonzalez Vasquez.
Aye.
Member Hetz.
Abstain.
Designee Roderick for Member Irwin.
Aye.
Member Jez. Member Lee.
Aye.
Member Moldoff.
Abstain.
Member Nellum.
Aye.
Member Romero. Designee Rika Cheska for California Health and Human Services. Member Skull.
Aye.
Member Souble.
Aye.
Member Sullivan. Member Van Natten.
Abstain.
Member Vu.
Abstain.
For the clarity of the record, we have 12 ayes and 5 abstentions.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie Gutierrez Valdez. The motion did not pass. So at this time, I can welcome a second motion if someone would like to propose that. And we can do a second motion for the same candidate or for a different candidate. And then the process would be after that, there could be a runoff as well. So I will pause to see if there are any questions and turn it over to Julia Blair, actually, excuse me, who would like to walk us through any other process points.
So if we do not receive a second motion for either candidate, then we would have a runoff where each member would state the candidate for which they support.
So at this time, I'll pause and see if anyone would like to advance a motion for either candidate.
I move to approve Jessica Moldoff for Vice Chair of the Board.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I second that.
Okay, with a motion and a second, let's pause for public comment. I have no speaker slips for this item. Is there anyone in the room in Sacramento who would like to provide public comment? Seeing none, I'll move to Zoom. Stephanie Gutierrez Valdez.
For members of the public attending via Zoom, please raise your hand at this time if you would like to comment on this agenda item. Okay, seeing no raised hands, that closes public comment.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Stephanie Gutierrez Valdez, please do a roll call vote. And for the clarity of the record, the motion is to move to approve Jessica Moldoff for Vice Chair of the Board.
Chair Payne.
Abstain.
Vice Chair Tagorda.
Abstain.
Designee Obtain-Villa.
Abstain.
Member Cifuentes.
Abstain.
Member Elias.
Abstain.
Member Evans.
Abstain.
Member Ferjueli.
Abstain.
Member Gonzalez Vasquez.
Abstain.
Member Hetz.
Aye.
Designee Roderick for Member Irwin.
Abstain.
Member Jez. Member Lee.
Abstain.
Member Moldoff.
Aye.
Member Nellum.
Abstain.
Member Romero. Designee Rika Cheska for California Health and Human Services. Member Skull.
Abstain.
Member Souble.
Abstain.
Member Sullivan. Member Van Natten.
Aye.
Member Vu.
Aye.
For the clarity of the record, we have 4 ayes and 13 abstentions.
Thank you. The motion does not pass. At this time, I would like to invite General Counsel Julia Blair to take us through the next steps in the process.
Okay, pursuant to the governance manual, if there is no motion that passes for a specific candidate, there will be a runoff between the 2 top candidates. Since we have 2 candidates, Member Moldoff and Member Tagorda, the runoff will be between these 2 candidates, and with the roll call vote, we would ask that members voice which member they would like to vote for. Obviously, in addition, an abstention is an option as well.
Okay, with that, we'll proceed to the roll call vote. Whereas General Counsel just stated, you will state the last name of the candidate that you are casting your vote for. And with that, just one process question. Julia Blair, should we pause for public comment again before doing this?
Yes, anytime there is board action, I think we should have an option for public comment, please.
So we will pause again. Is there anyone here in Sacramento who would wish to make public comment? Seeing none, over to Stephanie Gutierrez Valdez.
For those attending via Zoom, please raise your hand at this time if you would like to make a public comment. Seeing no raised hands, that closes public comment.
Okay, thank you. We will proceed with the roll call vote. Stephanie Gutierrez Valdez.
Chair Payne,
Tagorda.
Vice Chair Tagorda,
Tagorda.
Designee obtained via for Member Cabalden,
Member Tagorda.
Member Cifuentes,
Abstain.
Member Elias,
Member Tagorda.
Member Evans,
Tagorda.
Member Ferjueli,
Member Tagorda.
Member Gonzalez Vasquez,
Member Tagorda.
Member Hetz,
Member Tagorda.
Designee Roderick for Member Irwin,
Member Tagorda.
Member Jez, Member Lee,
Member Tagorda.
Member Moldoff,
Member Moldoff.
Member Nellum,
Tagorda.
Member Romero. Designee Rika Cheska for California Health and Human Services. Member Skull,
Tagorda.
Member Sublé,
Tagorda.
Member Sullivan, Member Van Atten,
Moldoff.
Member Vu.
Moldoff.
For the clarity of the record, we have 13 Tagorda, 3 Moldoff, and 1 abstention.
Thank you, Stephanie Gutierrez Valdez. At this time, neither candidate has received the minimum threshold of 14 votes. I will now invite General Counsel Julia Blair to take us through the next steps in the process.
My apologies. I'm looking to see because it's unclear to me if the runoff required a minimum of 14 votes or if it just requires one of the members to receive a majority. Going to look back at what is. It is my opinion that based on the governance manual language, let's see what it says. Okay, so based on the governance manual language, if neither candidate receives the threshold of 14 votes in the runoff, the election will result in a vacancy in the vice chair position. The chair will now have the authority to fill the vacancy by appointment. With that, I will now turn it over to Chair Gavin Payne.
Elections, especially internal elections, are never not awkward. And so I want to extend to both candidates my appreciation for them putting themselves forward and putting themselves out there, especially with a group as cohesive as this. With that, my sort of ruling is that I'm going to appoint Robert Tagorda to continue as vice chair for the next year, reflecting the majority of the vote that was received on his behalf. And so with that, thank you. And with that, I think we're finished with the item. Do you have to close it out?
Yes, I believe so. Just review my notes to make sure we're not missing any process points. I believe that closes out the item. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you all for participating in that process. And thank you both also for being willing to put yourselves forward and through this process. That's sort of never easy. So now, if I could, we'll move on to agenda item 4, which is the update from myself and our executive director. Two-part agenda items starting with me. I want to share a couple of sort of significant updates that have happened in the world since we were together last. And as you know, in early July, Governor Newsom signed AB 181 into law, which, as I'm sure you all know, implements fairly major structural changes to the way education is governed in California. Not untoward in terms of other states and how other states appropriately do the work. So under AB 181, the governor will be able to appoint a commissioner of education who essentially takes over the work of managing the Department of Education. The work of the Department of Education doesn't change. The work of the Department of Education continues. Their participation on this board continues by merit of that commissioner now having an additional seat on this board. So beginning in January, we will have 22 members of the board, one of whom is the State Superintendent of Public Instruction, and the other who is the Education Commissioner and or either of those individuals' designees as Liberty serves in that position now. Next on my agenda is liaison announcement. Since we last met, Member Scull has accepted the appointment as the secondary design liaison. As you know, that's a role that Member Lee has been fulfilling for a long time, but we didn't have a backup for that. And so he has graciously agreed to do that. He's jumped right in because there was a meeting yesterday, as I understand, around some of those exact design issues. And so we're very happy and we have a lot of gratitude for you joining us in that role. Thank you, Member Scull. I want to also talk about a little bit of a sort of external but augmentative activity that took place since we last met. Throughout the last couple of years, you've heard me talk about C2C Forward, the organization that we set up that was sponsored very graciously by the Foundation for California Community Colleges. We've been seeking philanthropic funds to fund data fellows to augment the work of this organization through those fellows. And I'm happy to announce that as of today, we have secured 2 fairly substantial grants from the from ECMC and the College Futures Foundation that will allow us to launch that Data Fellows program in earnest. We're hoping to hear good news on 1 or more others in the next coming weeks, and we'll let you know. But with that information, we're moving in earnest. The team is moving in earnest to start recruiting for those Data Fellows to begin work in January going forward. So that's a huge win, I think, for the organization. Moving on to member shout-outs, I want to start with board liaisons. As I acknowledged earlier, Meredith Lee has been C2C's primary design liaison since 2024. Much of what you see has her imprint and imprimatur on it, and we want to thank her for her service and continued role. She's been providing feedback on data visualization, data storytelling, brand identity, and various of our tools, and that advice has been invaluable. I want to thank also Ana Luz Gonzalez Vasquez and Chris Nellam for your sterling work as advisory board liaisons. At least from my observation, the work of the advisory boards themselves has just blossomed in the last year. both with engagement of the members and in sort of the value of the contributions they've made. And I credit both of you for helping them get to that place. And I want to thank you very much for that. Later today, we'll have an update on the joint meeting of those two advisory boards, and I'm looking really forward to that piece going forward. I also want to say a little bit of shout out for data providers. 9 data providers participated in the question and answer session at the joint advisory boards meeting. That's phenomenal. Thank you all for doing that, and for participating in that, and for sort of putting yourselves out there for our advisory board folks. They ask very pointed questions and they care a lot and very deeply. And so you're being willing to sit in front of them and answer questions is a marvelous thing. I want to thank you also to member Elias and for Joelle and designee Rikacheska. I do it every time. For participating and contributing to that successful answer session. I want to extend my appreciation also to members who worked closely with the office and their agencies to designate a representative to participate on their behalf. Thank you, members Evans, Moldoff, and Romero for that. We really appreciate it. And I also want to thank data provider colleagues who are not on the board for taking time to join the annual data provider question and answer session. Thank you, Adele Burns from the Department of Industrial Relations, Hillary Berwick from the Department of Social Services, and Noah Lightman from the Scholar Share Investment Board. The annual data provider question and answer session is one of the only direct connections that advisory board members have with data providers to ask about the work that they do and about the data's availability through C2C. And the information highlighted during that session provides clarity to the advisory board, especially prior to submitting their proposals and continuing their conversations. And then lastly, I want to conclude by sharing a high-level overview of my priorities as chair for the upcoming year, beyond the gratitude that I have for being reelected as chair. I really appreciate your trust and support. And in the coming year, I will continue to focus on strengthening our board's work and our roles as ambassadors for the data system. Through that work, especially the ambassador work, there'll be plenty of opportunities for board members to engage and support the work. Committees? Yes. Later today, members will have an opportunity to form the Executive Director Review Committee, and 3 members will work with me and the Vice Chair in conducting our annual review of our Executive Director, arguably our most important work. At the November meeting, members will have an opportunity to form the Governance Manual Review Committee, and we'll be looking for at least 3 folks to volunteer and to join that committee. Thank you to members for volunteering your time in advance on those committees, and it's important work and it cannot be done without your support and your active participation. So moving on, sort of making the invisible visible. As board members are aware, C2C just recently celebrated its 5th year anniversary. Tremendous milestone. People love to hear me talk about we went from 30 years to 3, 30 to 3 to flip the switch and get the system going. But the fact that the system has been operating and delivering for 5 years is a tremendous milestone. During agenda item 5, we will celebrate and reflect on all the outstanding achievements that we accomplished together. And as we work to uplift this work, members, it's where your role as ambassadors is especially important. So today, I'm going to give you some homework and ask you to reflect in preparation for our November meeting about how you might be able to help in being an ambassador, how you might be able to reach out, and who you might be able to help touch that we don't normally touch in the course of our business together as a board. Strengthening our connection with board liaisons will be a key priority, so think about that for November as well. This work will provide board members with the opportunity to increase their ownership in C2C's work, leverage unique subject matter expertise, as we saw with the design work, and strengthen our own feedback loops with stakeholders, especially data providers as well. And finally, I mentioned I would love to have you guys think about what you want to do as ambassadors going forward, but the dreaded other duties as assigned, it's the last thing that goes in any job description. It's the last thing that that you think about, but I want to be able to reserve the right to ask you to help in the coming year, whether it's publicly, whether it's privately, whether it's meetings, whether it's reaching out, whether it's connections. Please be aware that I might call you for other duties as assigned. So with that, thank you very much. I'll now invite Executive Director Bates to begin her part of the update.
Thank you so much. My update this morning is going to cover a number of things. If we can go to the next slide. First, 5-year anniversary celebrations, an update on last year's work plan and what we got done, work with partners, what's coming up, some updates from the office, and an overview of a few speaking engagements we've had. So if we can go to the next slide. This is our 5-year anniversary logo. Many thanks to Shannon Serrato and her team for putting this together. And the logo is kind of a metaphor for a cohesive story that we're telling not only this year, not only this week, but throughout the year. And in reflecting on these 5 years, many of you were here when that legislation was signed 5 years ago, and many of you did the work that preceded it. Right, the hard work of calling for the need for a data system, telling the story of why the people of California deserve access to their own data. And many of you were here at the table during the planning process where the details got sorted out of exactly what this data system would be. So thank you for all of you who are here at the table and did this. And to those of you who are dialing in from the public, I'm so grateful to be doing this work in an environment where all of you are still engaging, writing letters to this board, watching the work that we're doing, lifting it up, and really grateful for your continued voice and participation in that process. So for the 5-year anniversary, what you can see here is a screenshot of the press release from the governor on July 27th, celebrating that day. And we did celebrate that day, but I'm curious if any of you have friends who celebrate birthday week. Or birthday month, yes. Okay, so C2C is going to celebrate our birthday year and have activities throughout the year with partners and with the public, and really invite each of you to tell the story of this collaboration with us. So as we think about the 5 years of growth at C2C, we developed a foundation and an identity built on trust and transparency, consistently ingested and linked data. Huge shout out to our data providers who consistently have submitted data each year. The data system has grown, and we've made that information public for the people. And the screenshot you see here is a whole web page of 5 years of Cradle-to-Career, where you can expand each of these areas in the timeline, and it brings together a number of stories in that. And reflecting, those of you who are here prior to the planning process and during the planning process know that the build of the data system was not assumed, and it wasn't a given. There was skepticism. And we've overcome that and really build this data system together. And I'm incredibly proud of that shared work. And our focus now, especially in this coming year, is to deliver more data tools and products and connections with the data foundation we've now built with the major expansion of the data system last year. This slide, Faster Loan Further Together, I just want to emphasize what I mentioned. It really took so many partners. Of course, first and foremost, our data providers, without whom this data system could not exist, the C2C staff, this body, the governing board, the 2 advisory boards as well, all of the public and community engagement, and so many advocates, practitioners, and researchers who continue to tell the story of why this is needed. And the screenshot you see here, this is a quote from member Irwin, who, as you know, was a champion for the data system from the very beginning. And this is part of the story that's on that 5-year page. And I want to lift this up because this was a real whole of government effort, right? It was the governor, it was the legislature, it was the data providers, it was members of the public all calling for this and making it happen together. Now, We have a clear vision for the next 5 years, thanks to the hard work you did and voted on a strategic plan at your last meeting. I want to highlight that the Word document you voted on in May is now a beautifully designed web page on our website. So again, many thanks to the engagement team for making this happen. You see a screenshot of the overview and then a screenshot just of goal 1 and the beginning of goal 2, where it's very easy for the public to navigate it and see all of the goals and objectives. So you can find all of this in the 5 years forward link on our main homepage, or if you go to About on our website, there's a link to 5 years of C2C. And I'm sharing this resource because I really want to invite all of you to help tell this story of C2C with your community. All right, we of course celebrated this. This is you can see the team here on the picture with the hands saying C2C, and had a really fun moment celebrating our 5-year anniversary. The other picture you see here, I need to tell you a story of what that picture is. So whenever people ask me, what's your job description? What do you do? I usually say that what my job is to be like the person in curling who's sweeping furiously ahead of the curling stone, helping it to go farther. And that's really my job, to try to be that sweeper in front of the team to smooth the path and make it easier for them to do that. So Shannon Serrato apparently bought this little guy during the Winter Olympics a year and a half ago, long time ago. 4 months ago, never mind. Okay, I don't remember when the Winter Olympics were. A while ago, she got this little guy, and the team presented this when we had our team meeting for the anniversary. And so I now have this sitting in my office as a reminder. And I want to say that because of all the things that we've done at Cradle-to-Career, I'm really most proud of the team that we've built together and just have tremendous gratitude. There's so much that the team does behind the scenes that will never see the light of day that's entirely necessary for what the public sees of a stone just gliding across the ice. So many, many, many thanks to the team. With that, I want to shift gears now and talk about last year's work plan. So this is for the fiscal year that just closed. And the bottom line up front is summarized in these 2 emojis with the check mark, which is that we were able to complete the work that we set out to do last year. And we also were able to do a few additional things that hadn't been in the work plan initially. So I'll just highlight a few things. So those green check marks, these are the work plan pages from last year. It's too small for you to read, but I want you to just absorb the green check marks on each page. And these resources are available on our website if you want to be able to zoom in and see it in more detail. So on the operations side, we really invested in an inclusive staff culture and team cohesion. Last year, we had a 1.6% staff vacancy rate. Really grateful for all the team members who are here, who were each handpicked for the skills and the commitment to our mission that they bring. We were again able to encumber 99.99% of the C2C budget by the close of the fiscal year, ensuring that we can squeeze every last drop out of the resources made available. That does not happen by accident. And Leslie Taylor and her team do a lot of proactive work with every team we have to make sure we're triaging as the fiscal year closes and making sure that we're using the resources as appropriately as we can. Next slide. On the analytical data front, we really focused on the scalable and nimble infrastructure. You heard from Dan Lamry about this at your last meeting. We released the first version of the Query Builder with those data files that are available on our website. We updated the Student Pathways dashboard with enhancements, including being more mobile friendly, and the Secure Data Enclave. We procured the NORC platform, as you know, and built out the Secure Data Enclave such that it's now ready for pilot studies. And you really emphasized also the need for open science and a cohesive approach to doing research, for example, through learning agendas. So that's some of the highlights for that. We also have worked closely with our partners at the Student Aid Commission on the data reports. I'll be talking more about this in a moment, but this is a great first example of streamlining data linkages and sharing data between data providers for reporting purposes. We worked with the Scholarshare Investment Board on integrating the CalKids data so that could be used by the community colleges. And for the Transfers Outcome Dashboard, we advanced the data linkages and the development of that dashboard as well. We've also talked in multiple meetings about the major expansion with the labor and workforce data, both the earnings data that's now fully integrated into the data system and all of the job training and apprenticeship data that we're linking on behalf of those departments. On the practical tools side, per usual, we publish the annual student experience report. You heard about this in prior meetings. I'm also really excited about the progress that our colleagues at the community college have made in RFPs for both the e-transcript revamping and the build of the career passport. Those have reached their pilot stage in the multi-phase RFP process. So it's really exciting to see all of the momentum there. And CCGI has also reached scale in districts signing partnerships with them, reaching 95% of high school kids in the state. On engagement, just a few highlights. We continue these community conversations and really making sure that we listen first and then build. Remember, the query builder was an example of that, where we listened to the research community and putting out the CSV files that would make it easier for them to work with the underlying data. We've also advanced accessibility in public-facing tools and continuously engaging with the public. And then on boards, so this is where you, for this next slide, you can look at all of these check marks and reflect on all of your hard work over the past year. This is your annual calendar of what you do at each of your quarterly meetings, whether it's updating the governance manual or creating the new strategic plan for the next 5 years. You were able to come to consensus and advance all of the work that was on your calendar this last year. We also did some really important work beyond the work plan. So for example, ingesting the complete earnings data with the Employment Development Department was a huge step forward in being able to solve what we've called the earnings data puzzle here in the state, and was a first step towards putting the pieces in place for us to be able to show earnings outcomes for people who didn't attend public college or receive social services recently in California. And again, highlighting EDD as the first of our data partners to use the secure modern infrastructure of Snowflake for a very seamless and secure transmission of data. This was a major additional lift for our data teams here at C2C and for our partners at EDD, and it was really a key opportunity we needed to prioritize. So many thanks to EDD's close partnership. I also want to flag that this work with EDD set the stage for the vote you're taking in Agenda Item 8 today as well, which is very exciting. The second major piece that went beyond the work plan was around the CalKids data linkages. So the work plan target was to integrate the data. And thanks to close partnership between CalKids and the community colleges, C2C was able to not only integrate the data, but also deliver the first round of data linkages to the community colleges so they can reach out to students and unlock those scholarship funds. And remember, this was an idea that came and was fostered in part by the advisory board member proposals on this as well. The infrastructure that enables milestones. So we're working to ingest data seamlessly through the annual data submission, the initial additional base wage file data, an efficient mastering process, and responding to high priority requests. And all of this connects with the themes you heard from our Director of Data Infrastructure, Dan Lamry, at your last meeting, of really building the system to be as nimble as possible so that in the future we can be as responsive as possible to the kinds of questions and data needs that are timely here in the state. And all of that infrastructure and process is really focused on making an efficient use of C2C staff time. All right, work with partners. For this one, again, highlighting the CalKids reporting, just the initial pilot round identified 20,000 students and $40 million of unclaimed accounts. And it's been really wonderful to work with the Chancellor's Office in piloting outreach opportunities with them to help raise awareness of those opportunities. As I mentioned, we've also worked closely with the Student Aid Commission over the last year on the SB 70 reporting process. This has to do with Cal Grant information and really ensuring that the state can understand the impact and ROI of those. So we provided CSAC with institution level data reports describing post-secondary outcomes and aid utilization. And this helped the University of California and CSU and the community colleges comply with their required legislative reporting. And these reports will also support the development of CSAC's dashboards to really provide the public with information on who uses state aid by institution and whether or not those students persist, graduate, or transfer from those institutions. So thank you for the collaboration with the Student Aid Commission. Thank you for the collaboration with the higher education segments on this. Next slide. And you can see here a screenshot of what we have live on our website right now. All of our future data reports will be in a new part of our website called Data Insights. And you can see here a summary of this collaboration with the Student Aid Commission, as well as the reports from C2C here. So this is going to be a growing part of our website as well. And this is where you can find all the information on this SB70 work from the C2C side. Additional collaborations as well. We've talked about the National Student Clearinghouse contract a number of times. Many thanks to the Department of Education and Member Van Natten, who she and her colleagues have worked with us. They collaborate to share the data with the National Student Clearinghouse. And then we, as you know, at C2C house the statewide contract and pay for it from the C2C budget, and negotiated that we could share that information, of course, with CDE at no additional cost to the state. We're now also making that data available at no additional cost to the state, to the Student Aid Commission as well. So it's a nice example of government efficiency in practice. We're also planning to use that information for the planned college and career reports for LEAs as well, which will provide visibility into paths that students in California take into nonprofit and out-of-state schools as well. And again, uplifting the e-transcript task force that we did a while back that really added momentum for changes that will smooth the path for dual enrollment and transfer students through the revamped e-transcript work for the community colleges as well. All of this really centers on data being for the people and getting more data to people and making insights accessible. One of the things we really want to focus on is creating custom data cuts and reports, whether that's through filters on our dashboard or the way we create aggregate data files on our websites for researchers, so that we can serve as a neutral source of information and people can find the useful, necessary information that they need. And that success really depends on that strong, nimble, and flexible data infrastructure and the close collaboration with partners. Next slide. One thing I want to highlight, I mentioned this in brief at our last meeting, and we've continued to work with the Labor Agency on creating a State Workforce Analytics Gateway, or SWAG, where essentially we're creating a corner of the C2C data enclave for the labor agency's departments to use their own data from their 4 departments that C2C is linked on their behalf for their own reporting and analysis. And so this is one example of how the tools that we're building can be useful to our data providers, and really look forward to working with more data providers on similar projects as we can make sure that the data that we're linking on your behalf can be useful for your own purposes as well. We also just released a blog yesterday. I want to highlight Valencia Smith's authorship of that really talks through some of the examples that I just highlighted in this slide to really show how collaborations drive these successes and can improve efficiency and reduce administrative burdens, both for students here in California and for the work that our data providers do with each other. So I really encourage you to take a look at this blog and help tell that story and highlight it as well. Next up, we have some current and upcoming work. And as you know, one of the dashboards we have planned is the transfers outcome dashboard. So our next dashboard is going to answer priority questions about students who transfer from community colleges to four-year colleges. And for that content and design, we've leveraged input from a wide range of stakeholders, focus groups with transfer students and practitioners, interviews. We held a community conversation in July, getting input from the public, and we're having ongoing conversations and data reviews from data providers and other subject matter experts. So that dashboard development is ramping up, and we look forward to sharing more with you soon on this planned dashboard. The next dashboard we're also working on is the teacher training and retention dashboard that will connect data that already exists to provide a longitudinal view of California's teacher workforce. And so we're currently in the process of finalizing and validating the underlying data and methodologies that will power those visualizations. And I want to make sure you all know, and those who are dialing in, we will be hosting feedback sessions as well for stakeholders to identify opportunities before we launch. So that, of course, includes meeting with data providers, listening sessions, and we're planning to hold a public community conversation on Zoom in the fall on this dashboard as well. So really looking forward to getting input for that. The annual work plan, later today, you'll be reviewing and taking action on our annual work plan. Big picture right now is this aligns to the strategic plan you just voted on in May. And the big picture theme is that we spent a lot of time last year focused on expanding the data system. For this year, our vision is to make sure we're prioritizing building with what we've got, the data we have today, and prioritizing releasing more data insights that will benefit Californians, and pushing pause for a moment on trying to bring additional data into the data system and really releasing more with the information that we've now gathered. And of course, I also want to lift up that what's in the external work plan isn't comprehensively everything on the team that the team is doing. There's a lot of behind the scenes work as well. We have a number of office updates. I want to welcome one of our new team members, Brian Marotte, who's our new Chief Information Security Officer. And we currently have a staff vacancy rate of 0%. So we're very happy to have fully staffed the team and are working to advance the work. And I'm highlighting here a number of speaking engagements. As you know from your conversations and what you prioritize, it's very important for us to be learning from other states, to be learning from across the state here, and to tell the story of the collaborative work we're doing in California as well. And so we've had a number of great opportunities to do so. And some of the key themes that we've been highlighting is, one, the new workforce data and that potential that's now unlocked in the data system, and that the collaborations with the data providers are really at the heart of driving the most impactful work. So with that, I'm happy to conclude my update and turn it back over to Chair Payne.
Perfect. Now is the time in our agenda for questions on either of our reports. If folks have questions or comments, please. The floor is open. Member Evans on the screen.
Hi, good morning. Member Evans, California State University. That was a lot, and I want to thank both of you. I think it really captures the tremendous amount of work, not just in recent months, but also over the 5-year lifetime of C2C. And so there were just a couple things I want to make a comment on. First, I want to express deep appreciation to the C2C team. It's incredible the amount of work, and that is consistent. Every board meeting, we hear about progress, and it is nonstop. And so I just want to appreciate the entire C2C team. One of the things I know I have shared with Marianne in various spaces is something that you may not see every day, and that is how C2C is changing our organizations as a data provider. And I'll just share that, the CSU adopted its own new strategic plan last fall, CSU Forward. And interestingly, our default position as we think about measurement of our success in that is not, what data system do we need to build? Our default position, first and foremost, is this something C2C can now answer for us? And I hope that is something that's happening in other entities as well. And so I just want to acknowledge that. Sometimes it's not today, but it's on the roadmap, which I appreciate. And so the new data views that were described around transfer and teacher training are of great interest to us. And I want to maybe plus one to a comment, Marianne, you made about the opportunity with the current work plan to really leverage the existing data that we have instead of adding. I know there's tremendous interest in what we can augment and connect, but there is an enormous treasure trove of data that C2C now holds. And I appreciate the emphasis and focus of our upcoming work plan on really leveraging that in new ways instead of thinking about adding. And so I just want to offer my support for that focus in the near term. The last thing I want to say is maybe to add to those speaking engagements. I know there's been an informal, but let this be a formal invitation to Marianne to join our November CSU Board of Trustees meeting for a return engagement for a progress report. As I said, there's just so much alignment in the work that C2C is doing, has accomplished already over these 5 years, and look forward to being able to invite Marianne to our Board of Trustees to share that and again make those connections to the direction for the CSU. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Evans. Other hands, other questions? Yes, Member Lee.
Hi, Member Lee. Incredible progress, and it's always amazing to see it all in a few slides together. I wanted to underscore actually what Member Evans mentioned, and definitely +1, the power of shifting the default. As we look to make the invisible more visible and celebrate for the full year, our 5th year anniversary, there's something really compelling about having each of the institutions, organizations highlight some of those shifting the defaults opportunities. What was it like 5 years ago? What is it now? We may not be able to take credit for all of the great shifts of defaults, but the ones where there is that direct connection to being inspired by our dashboards or the steady cadence of community conversations. I think that's something to pull on a little bit as we look to tell those stories. I also wanted to just underscore how excited I am about the data fellows and what was mentioned now many minutes ago, but the news that Chair Payne shared about philanthropic organizations getting involved. That's really exciting and not the norm for a lot of statewide bodies like this. So huge thumbs up to thinking creatively about public-private partnerships and how that larger ecosystem can support the work.
Thank you, Member Lee. Member Van Natten, do I see your hand raising?
Member Van Natten, I have a couple questions. So the first question is kind of a comment/question, but in line with this idea of using what we have. And I think that's what y'all are planning on doing with this, the report that will focus on the people who transfer from a 2-year to a 4-year. Is that the intention? Because that data is in the existing dashboard. Is that right?
This is Marianne Bates. Yes, so the transfer dashboard that we're working on right now will be done with the data that we have received already from data providers. And that data is in the dashboard that's live in the sense that when you look at that for Sankey, you can see who first enrolls in a community college and later goes to a 4-year. Think of the transfer dashboard as essentially taking that picture and enriching it dramatically with a lot more information than what you can see just from that one Sankey.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's cool. I like that. So there's my comment. I think was curious about the college and career reports for LEAs. So was that, where did that come from?
I'm so glad you asked. The college and career reports for LEAs is the label we're giving to an idea that the Data and Tools Advisory Board advanced last year. That was advanced by Watson and Tarasova, I believe, were the 2 members who advanced that. So you've actually talked about that proposal before. You discussed it at your May meeting. And so we're working with those advisory board members and with our data providers to see how we can go from the ideas that the advisory board members advanced to a feasible report that could be useful for LEAs. And one thing that we want to essentially try out with this is whether something that is lighter lift to produce than a dashboard could be useful for practitioners across the state. So as you know, doing a whole dashboard design on our website is a very high lift. We can only put out so many of those at a time. What we're trying out with this is, could a report that's customized to a specific LEA be useful for their decision making, even if it's not a fully designed dashboard on our website? So that's part of what we want to try out this year and see what kind of feedback and take up we get on that specifically. So thank you for asking that question, because I had meant to connect the dots on those 2 and hadn't. So appreciate the clarifying question.
Member, yes, Nellum.
Sure. Morning, Member Nellum. I just wanted to congratulate the office on 5 years, of course, and then also just appreciate, I'm nerding out on this. I don't know whose team created it, but the 5-year timeline looking back, as someone who has followed this for a long time, even I struggle to convey like what the successes have been. And I think it's just really done nicely here. And also want to appreciate the way the strategic plan is presented on the website. I think it's a really thoughtful, transparent way to share with the public, like, here's what we've done the last 5 years and here's what the plans are. And as someone who I hope is a, agent of chaos or support for the data system, it's nice to have this available to tell the story. So just appreciating that.
I'm going to assume that's a yes and. All right. Other comment? Oh, yes. Rain.
Just quick add on to that. Shout out to the engagement team. That was Shannon Serrata's team, of course, who created those resources. So thank you.
Other comments, questions? Yes, member for Joelle.
Member for Joelle, University of California. Yeah, I just want to extend my congratulations to Cradle-to-Career for all these great achievements over the past 5 years. And as someone who has been involved from the very beginning of the planning process, I can say that all of these accomplishments have far exceeded the expectations we had then. So I'm proud of that and looking forward to the next 5 years and beyond. But I also wanted to uplift in particular the work with the partners, and in particular on the SB 70 data collection, which was the first time we partnered with Cradle-to-Career to fulfill a statutory reporting requirement to the Student Aid Commission. And not only did it go smoothly and save us a lot of time, but it really gave us a new partner to work with who understands that data from a statewide perspective as much or better than we do. So we can work better with the Student Aid Commission, explain what they're seeing in the data. And I think it's going to end up resulting in a much better final product for the state than it ever had before. So that partnership not only was about administrative efficiency, it really enriched the process and the ultimate outcome for the state. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? Perfect. I think we've earned a break. So it's 10:48. Let's come back at 11:05 if we could, please. All right, we're ready to go. Welcome back from the break. We'll now be moving on to agenda item 5, our presentation on making the invisible visible. I'll be presenting this item with Executive Director Bates, Shannon Serrato, Director of Engagement, and Angelique Palomar, Deputy Director of Communications. So members, you have in front of you scratch paper on the dais. Throughout the presentation, I encourage members to take notes on the key themes and statements that resonate with you. And then during deliberation, please refer back to your scratch paper and share and let us hear those thoughts then and statements that come to mind as you're working through this information. So as I shared earlier today, this year marks an exciting milestone. C2C is celebrating 5 years. I want to start the presentation by reflecting on how far we've come since the C2C planning process and the office was established. So for our new members who've joined us along the way, I thought it would be helpful to provide a brief look back at where we started and the journey that has brought us here today. So as we all know, prior to 2019, California had separate, disconnected information on various education systems, employment, and workforce services, as well as social services and health service programs. It was challenging for Californians themselves and legislators and policymakers to identify the barriers and successes for Californians as they moved through from early childhood through adulthood. It was impossible to put that information together in a legitimate way. So understanding this deeply, Governor Newsom launched the idea for C2C, recognizing the importance of providing actionable information to communities and families to help create better outcomes for all Californians and to supply the same information to policymakers as they make decisions about the Californians in our economy going forward. Assemblymember Jackie Irwin, a strong believer herself that good information begets good decision-making, and introduced the California Cradle-to-Career Data System Act. The legislature passed the legislation in 2019, which set out the requirements for the development of a statewide data infrastructure to link existing educational, workforce, financial aid, and social service information together The act also articulated the scope of an 18-month planning process to be shaped by a work group that consisted of designated partner entities from early learning in K-12, post-secondary, education-related entities, employment and workforce training, social service, data experts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It really was an unheard of process that was set up, and one that had not happened anywhere else in the history of the country. So over the course of 18 months, from fall 2020 to spring of 2021, at over 100 public meetings, more than 200 people from 15 state agencies and many educational institutions, research and policy organizations, to say nothing of community groups, worked together to design the blueprint for the Cradle-to-Career data system. Through a user-centered design process, the planning process itself established a clearly articulated model on how data could be used to empower individuals to reach their full potential and to foster evidence-based decision-making to help California build a more equitable future. How specific parties would benefit from linking data, and a comprehensive privacy and security framework which aligns with modern technology systems. All to say that it needed to explain how information will be shared in a manner that respects individual privacy and honors legal safeguards for a broad range of data types, as we have talked about many times. The recommendations from that planning process served as the roadmap for C2C's first 5 years of implementation and for the legislation that established it. I want to take this opportunity to thank a few members sitting here today who participated in the work group itself, who participated in advisory group or the subcommittees in the planning process. Members Cifuentes, Evans, Ferjueli, Hetz, Jez, Moldoff, Nellam, Skull, Vu. I hope you'll feel free to offer your own reflections today as we have this conversation. On July 27th, 2021, Governor Newsom signed AB 132, which established us, creating a statewide framework for linking all of those disparate agency data together and spitting out what we hope is great information from which we can make decisions. The bill established the governance and operational structure that we have and that we see today, and established us within the Government Operations Agency, as we discussed at length over the last several months as we were doing our strategic planning process. Following the signing of AB 132, the first 21-member governing board members were seated. And I'd love at this point if any of those members who were both involved in that process or who were seated in that first meeting would love to share some of the reflections. No worries, there will be ample time throughout the time we go through this process. Did I miss a hand raised on the screen? No, I did not. Okay, good. All right, so now I'd love to invite Executive Director Bates to begin her portion of this presentation.
Thank you, Chair Payne. So this is looking back again over the last 5 years. Think of this as sort of a zoom in on the website we talked about a moment ago of the 5 years of C2C. So first talking about building the office. So you met, as Chair Payne just mentioned, for the first time in late 2021. I started in February of the following year, and we worked to establish leadership positions. So our 4 vertical directors that we hired that first year are still in their positions, coming in on their 4-year anniversaries, which is really exciting. And we started with those leadership positions so that each of them could then build the teams that have been advancing the work. So that was a really important part of that first year. And I'll mention a few things as we go through this in the next slide on what we did. In parallel with all of this, remember we were going through the PAL process, right? The technology project approval process that the state has. So in parallel with the technology planning that had a timeline that we did on an accelerated basis, we were also establishing all of the other parts of this work. So if we can go to the next slide, that included kicking off things like community conversations, doing the first student experience report, making sure we got that report to the legislature in on time. The whole brand identity, right? Where Shannon collaboratively developed this logo with the public and created a recognizable identity. And we seated 32 advisory board members that first year. With, I forget how many applications we got in the first round. It was a very large number and have continued to each time. So that was a lot of work that we did in building out the mechanisms of how we work together while we were keeping the foot on the gas to be able to go through the procurement for the technology. And then the data system grew. So in just 3 years, remember that very first data submission in October of 2023, 8 of you as data providers submitted data. This past March, there's 16. And you can see a screenshot to a blog that describes this as well. And really, this was accomplished with a lot of trust and transparency, a strong governance structure, where at every point when you added new data providers, added new data points, we had a process for that. And I emphasize this so many times in my public talks about this work, one legal agreement. That legal agreement that your legal counsel sat around tables developing for 1.5 years was signed for the first time in May of 2022, and it hasn't changed, right? We created a 1-sentence addendum on a few for the EDD piece recently. We've added at least 6 signatures to it since that time, and the participation agreement has remained the same. That's incredibly important because that means we have one common way and for the data to flow in. The data points are on equal footing, and that's what lets us put out these dashboards and the information in the way that we do. So incredibly important on that point. Built by and for Californians, separate systems that were not intended to be connected. We've managed to do that. The scholarship investment funds work we've talked about, and the largest expansion plan of the data system was set in motion with the expansion of the workforce data as well. And then, of course, the launch of the student pathways dashboard. So that's just a highlight of some of the high points over the last few years. So back over to Chair Payne.
Marvelous. So thank you, Director Bates. I want to invite Shannon Serrato, Director of Engagement, and Angelique Palomar, Deputy Director of Communications, to complete this presentation. Take it away.
Thank you, Chair Payne. Good morning, members. So we've been talking already a lot about our anniversary, and it's not just because we're really excited about it, and we are, but anniversary is an important milestone and an important marker that tells the story about an organization's trajectory and about the success. Because you are our governing board members, you know that the office was signed into law July 27, 2021, establishing a first-in-the-nation initiative to better connect data on education, workforce training, and employment. And you also know that in its first 5 years, C2C has grown from legislation to a statewide resource designed to help Californians make informed education and career decisions. But while we've made great progress launching tools and connecting with Californians all across the state, many of our greatest accomplishments haven't always been visible. So while we built a statewide secure data system, creating the technical infrastructure to connect data that was not meant to be linked before, and forming partnerships across California and the country, some of C2C's most important work has happened out of public view, and there are many people who not only aren't aware of the depth and breadth of C2C's work, but are just now learning about Cradle-to-Career. So the real work of the office and my team in particular is to tell our story. So this part of the presentation is about how the engagement team is making the invisible visible and measuring our impact, how we're helping more Californians access and understand the people's data, and how we're continuing to expand engagement as we enter into this next phase. Okay, so as I've said, a milestone, in this case, our 5-year anniversary, is a natural opportunity for reflection. As soon as Marianne and C2C's first staff were hired, we really hit the ground running. And in our early 5 years, we spoke often about how we were building the plane while flying it. There was so much to do, and much of C2C's first 5 years was spent building the foundation, delivering on the plan that we were tasked with in statute and in that early 18th-month planning process. But as we pause to take stock of our first 5 years, we recognize this as a chance to really tell our story, to think about how we've been communicating with our audiences and how we might be doing it better. So in this first place, you'll see that is in our most forward-facing platforms, namely the C2C website. We did a full revamp of c2c.ca.gov. If you remember, there's a website that I try to bury back in my mind, but it was there before I joined. But we ramped the website just as we got the first round of data from data providers. And that was certainly before we had any tools on the site. And so we didn't really have a lot of insight into how users were going to engage with the website. And we really didn't know what they were looking for when they got there. So to that end, we've been doing wholesale revamps to parts of the site based on user feedback, including a redesign of the data points archive webpage. So in addition to a more intuitive user experience, an updated data dictionary will provide users of the site a resource that allows them to get information relative to their needs. And then as we expand our work in collaboration with partners and agencies across California, we're telling those stories. We have a new linked data insights hub that houses information from all of the projects leveraging linked data that provide insights for agency partners, prioritizing government efficiency, and fast tracking effective results for Californians. And finally, we're making sure that we tell our story in a more encompassing way, as you've seen today in this 5-year forward page, which is a central hub that houses all of the things we talked about today. Our strategic plan that's available in both PDF and HTML, an overview of the office and quotes from C2C champions, including Governor Gavin Newsom, as well as C2C Governing Board Member, Assembly Member Jackie Irwin. But beyond updates to the website, C2C's comms team, including our communications coordinator, Cynthia Lopez Montes, has been hard at work on our 5-year campaign that will live on the site and on our socials. The campaign will feature new videos, including informational videos explaining C2C, one focused on the strat plan and the 5 goals, and other staff-focused content that we've already started working on, and we're really excited to share that with you soon. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Angelique, who will speak to how we're measuring C2C's impact.
Thank you, Shannon. So as Shannon alluded to earlier, we were building the plane while we were flying it. Someone was welding the panels together. Somebody else was flying the plane. Somebody else was putting the engine together. And when we were establishing the data system, we had very little insight into the behavior of our users and what Californians needed for our site. And this type of analysis takes time. We know that metrics show evidence of our progress toward our mission. And over time, 5 years to be exact, we've been able to understand what kind of content, information, and resources resonated with our users. So many of the forward-facing updates to our website that Shannon mentioned, yes, were driven by user feedback, but they were also driven by metrics and user behavior that we accounted for throughout the years. We saw opportunities to improve the first interaction that many people have with C2C, and that's our website. And so we acted on it. So how did we know our communications efforts were helping us achieve our mission? And how did we assess user behavior, especially when we had little insight as we were building the plane? Well, we tracked our impact and our reach through a variety of ways prior to launching the Student Pathways Dashboard. We did this through community engagements, whether it was in person or virtual. We made sure that we were connecting with local communities and their trusted leaders. We tracked our web traffic via Google Analytics and the newsletter upticks that we had over time. We closely monitored our social media engagements and new follower count, and we kept track of our earned media press engagements. As the office expanded its scope, we let our metrics continue to inform our communication strategy. Thank you. We let our metrics continue to inform our communication strategy to meet the needs of our users. And as we've grown over the past 5 years, tracking the office's reach and impact has become an important way to really understand whether or not we're fulfilling our mission of being California's source of actionable data on education, economic, and health outcomes for individuals. Next slide, please. Okay, so when we launched the dashboard last year, we were able to go from explaining a concept to having something tangible to show people. This launch attracted thousands of people to our site in a very short period of time. And this type of attention helped us better understand our users. So after the initial launch, how did we know that people were still engaging with us even after the splashy announcement had gone and the news cycle had moved on to a different topic? Well, we've been tracking this from the very beginning through Google Analytics, again, and we built in a mechanism to report on it internally. What you'll see on the slide is a screenshot of a dashboard that tracks the Student Pathways Dashboard's progress. It includes page views, that's unique. It also includes the average length that people are viewing the dashboard, what type of device they're using to access our dashboard, and where they're tuning in from. And you'll see that we're well on our way to meeting our KPI of 100,000 page views by the fall. A really interesting metric here is the average time our users spend on the page. People are staying on this page for a little over 2 minutes, which is a significant thing. For anyone who works with Google Analytics within your own organizations, you'll know that 2 minutes is a significant thing. The typical user behavior, they stay on the page for 30 seconds before they move on to another page or completely exit out. And so our users are staying on the page for much longer than what is average because they're interested in the content and they're interested in diving deeper into the data. This is just a glimpse into one of the reports that we have. We have several reports just like this that track different efforts from our governance-related work to other data projects. Again, we're leaning on various metrics to guide our communications decisions. I'll now pass it back to Shannon to share more about how our broader engagement efforts are translating into action items ahead.
Great. So as Angelique just detailed, we've been working really hard at establishing and implementing a plan for regular reporting of key metrics related to the office's objectives and public-facing products. The comms team is able to track and measure the office's reach of items that the public can touch, see, and feel, clearly demonstrating growth and trajectory. But what I want to highlight that sometimes get lost in these numbers is that each metric, each data point, every dot in a chart represents a person and the people of California more broadly. Every website visit is somebody looking for information. Every community conversation is an opportunity for us to build a relationship. And every media story expands awareness to audiences that we might not otherwise reach. But while these are clear, distinct numbers that tell the story, C2C's broader goal and the work of the engagement team, which is ensuring equitable access to all Californians, is much squishier. As the office engaged in the update of C2C's strategic plan this past year, that was something that I really grappled with. How do you define and demonstrate regular community engagement in a huge state like California? And then how do you operationalize it? And while not a specific task nor a deliverable, engagement worked in parallel during the strategic planning process to tackle those questions, which you can see reflected as part of Goal 3 in C2C's strategic plan, which aims to maximize the office's reach, strengthen understanding of data, and expand community use of tools by implementing effective community-driven delivery methods for Californians' populations. And as a fun side quest, in my free time, we engaged in some of those conversations. I've been building out a 5-year engagement plan that lays out what it means for my vertical, communications, legislative affairs, and governance to do our work well as a unit. Within that plan, we've defined and fleshed out meaningful metrics, as just described by Angelique, and built out what established ongoing community engagement could look like. Through a scaled approach, over the next 5 years, engagement activities will focus on building a sustainable infrastructure for training, communication, and collaboration statewide. As we think about regular ongoing engagement, we have defined the types of relationships we're focused on with the goal of establishing connections with school leaders, advocacy organizations and coalitions, professional and employment associations, CBOs, faith-based organizations, and community leaders. We have also defined the regions, 9 throughout the state, and the yearly cadence of planned engagement within those communities. And we're measuring those engagements through C2C's events and trainings. So that all sounds super exciting, but to ensure that it actually happens, we're really focusing on an objective, again, in Goal 3, that leans on the community-driven defined methods of engagement. As that work grows and takes shape, it is important to lay the groundwork, and we're working to align how we're capturing and targeting engagement as we think about prioritization, opportunities, and trade-offs. So to peel the curtain back a little bit, we've been working internally for a while now to build out a CRM with Salesforce to move us into this century so that we can just move away from things like existing spreadsheets in the back end, and this is just for internal C2C purposes, to a more streamlined location so that we can all find information as an organization, which I'm sure you can all appreciate and understand. But as we began this implementation for thinking about C2C as an entity, we engaged these conversations and we thought about how we could leverage those opportunities around meaningful engagement and really try to rethink about how we're capturing information. So we're rejiggering some of that in the back end to align with user engagement, from the analytics Angelique just named, to revising our email client backend to better classify signups, where they're coming from, what they're interested in, who they are, from the outset, so that all the information feeds into a central place with dashboards that help us know where resources have gone and where to prioritize engagement in the long run as a targeted, regular strategy. Next slide, please. So that's the 30,000-foot view of what we're thinking about as we're defining, capturing, and prioritizing community engagement. But what does community engagement an event look like? For much of our first 5 years, success meant building the foundation of the data system. And over the next 5 years, success will mean helping Californians access it, understand it, and use it. So you'll see that reflected broadly in the strat plan, as well as the work plan, centering data literacy in the next phase of C2C's work. And efforts that are currently underway, as well as those contemplated and upcoming. The office will conduct events and training activities that build the foundation for statewide data literacy, expanding the reach and engagement of data walks, data academies, community learning opportunities, and partner-hosted training experiences. And to that end, activities will increase the understanding of how education to career data can support student success and decision-making, support educators, counselors, community organizations, and agencies in interpreting and applying data, create engagements that can be replicated and implemented locally across regions, and develop a statewide network of trained facilitators capable of sustained engagement. We've engaged in many of these activities already. We partnered with the Blue Educational Foundation and CEAB member Terrell Jones earlier this year to hold a data walk in the Inland Empire. And we're really excited that we'll be partnering with freshly former, we're sad to have lost them, Community Engagement Advisory Board members Alexis Takagi and Lorenzo Gamboa for a data walk in the Bay Area in October at Santa Clara University. And the bones of our data academies are being developed from those engagements, as well as C2C's Train the Trainer program, an advisory board member proposal to build capacity that is being developed thoughtfully with the governance team in partnership with a working group made up of former advisory board members to flesh out that curriculum. Okay, so all those are planned regular engagements and what we're thinking about what it means to just be in community on a regular basis. But we couldn't be C2C if we didn't think big. I share this often, but when I started, Mary Ann told me to think big, and I've never looked back. So as noted in the third goal of our strategic plan, we want to maximize the reach, strengthen understanding, and expand community use of our tools. And so for us, that means thinking about everything that we've discussed today, getting creative, being innovative, and really engaging our communities in something that I'm really excited about. So beyond a directive or an OKR, C2C, or for C2C to be relevant, we need to be in community. We have to be willing to seek new opportunities and to think outside the box. So in addition to the upcoming data walk in October, we are really pleased that we'll be in San Diego next month at the EdTrust West Educational Equity Forum for a session that we're calling a Datathon. We've been thinking a lot about regional targeted engagement, but this upcoming forum is an opportunity to actively engage with key stakeholders deeply steeped in this work to be in community and provide hands-on access to the data sets housed by C2C, to build out data visualizations, ask better research questions, and engage in discussions about issues that matter to them and their communities. This will be our third EdEquity Forum. So I want to use this as a point of privilege to share that when we first joined the forum, I think I was on the team for 4 weeks. We were just talking about what it meant to potentially unlock the power of this data in California. In 2024, we were previewing the first dashboard and getting feedback from the public. So now, as we're on the cusp of our third forum, it's really incredible to be able to put these tools and the resources in the hands of the public that they can actually use and help them. So that's a long-winded way of saying if you're in San Diego next month, please join our forum. It'll be on the 23rd at 3:15. So we're looking forward to that. And finally, I have one final save the dates, which is a big one. And I'm really excited to share that we will hold our inaugural Community Data Day next year. As Mary Ann shared, we are celebrating all year long, and this will be our really milestone event for the office. I'm something that I'm really, really excited about. So I want to share that in our first year, the Community Engagement Advisory Board, I received a question from a then member about whether, and this is more like a when, we would be hosting a C2C conference. But this is before we launched the dashboard and before we linked any data, and I just couldn't see it at the time. But as we've reached this milestone, the idea of having a day where people from all across the state who care deeply about students in California more broadly and data can be fully realized. So in 6 months to this day, not that I'm counting or anything, C2C will be hosting the office's inaugural Community Data Day on February 10th, 2027 here in Sacramento at the Natural Resources Building. So consider this your unofficial invitation. Our Community Data Day will bring together data users and those represented in the data to learn, connect, and help shape what comes next. Participants will engage directly with the data and people who produce it and the communities that use it to gain insights and inform decisions. We will have speakers and activities. We'll maybe even have our scavenger hunt, and we'll be sharing many more details in the coming weeks. But I want to make sure this is on your radar now, and we'll be putting it on your calendars shortly. So with that, that officially concludes our presentation, and I'd like to hand it back to Chair Payne for member questions or comments.
Great, thank you. The floor is open for any questions or comments by members. Anything you scribbled on your sheets would be a lovely thing to share. Scanning. Member Evans on screen.
No, thank you so much, and thank you for the incredible work that was shared. You know, I'm thinking about looking ahead when you talked about the Community Data Day. Certainly, not only all of the post-secondary institutions, but our K-12 partners as well have been invested in expanding access to data science programs. And I wonder if there's not a way for us to carry that forward beyond just an event and day in Sacramento to our own local programs and sort of elevating the awareness of C2C as a data source for those programs, whether they be in K-12, whether they be in post-secondary institutions. So certainly I offer to do that on behalf of the CSU, challenge my colleagues to bring it back to their respective segments as well. Because again, I think this is a way to get data in the hands of our future researchers and our future public policy users in the community. So anyway, amazing work. Appreciate elevating everything that C2C is doing in this variety of ways.
Thank you, Member Evans. So noted by the other segments. Member Lee.
Member Lee, Senate appointee. I am very excited. I already blocked out the 10th on my calendar for Community Data Day. Would love to brainstorm how we could support local satellite events for those who can't make it to Sacramento. I don't think I've personally ever been part of a scavenger hunt that was across multiple physical locations and online. That could be really interesting and fun, especially if what we're finding is in a nicely accessible C2C dashboard or portal. I imagine there was some planning to make that day, the inaugural Community Data Day, right smack in the middle of International Data Week. If it was a happy coincidence, it just happens to be International Data, Love Data Week. And so there could be a ton of uplift and synergy. What if California Cradle-to-Career were the first touch point for, not just Californians, but really internationally, people seeing what the data means on this journey. So I think we're very well positioned for that, and I'm very excited.
Thank you, Member Lee. We definitely planned that. So thank you for calling that.
Other comments or questions? Yes.
Member Gonzalez Vasquez. I just want to give you all flowers. Oftentimes, when we think about community engagement, it's very superficial. And what you're building here is not only a very important data and resource tool, but it is an infrastructure for real and meaningful community engagement across many communities in California. So thank you for that. I feel it as the Data Advisory Board liaison. The way that you engage different communities is extraordinary. I do want to look back at a slide that showed the regional reach. Did I read that right? Was it not just, it's international?
That's
Is that
correct.
right?
Yep, that's correct.
Wow, that is amazing. So kudos to you all. You are doing a fantastic job.
Thank you.
To that end, I think we all do our parts. Wherever I go, I ping the website just to make sure we get the credit. But I don't know that, has anybody here been to Chile recently? It's fascinating.
I should note that it's unique views. So the amount of times that you tap into to the dashboard through your phone from different places, it only counts it as one.
Got it.
Originally from
Fine.
your original location.
So I'm no longer unique. I got it. Thank you so much. All right. Other comments or questions? Member Gordo.
A question and it'll lead to a comment. You mentioned developing a statewide network of trained facilitators capable of sustaining engagement. There's a curriculum. You're all working on that. So I think it's important for the board to go and layer deeper. Tell us a little bit about this work and why you think it's really critical to uplift right now.
Absolutely. So we have been talking about train the trainer for a long time. Just as an organization, this was something that has been brought to us, particularly from a former advisory board member who is no longer on the board, and this wasn't her proposal. But just thinking about how we have such a small capacity as a team, and we have champions who really want to do this work and spread the word about C2C, but there's a nervousness about having this depth and breadth of information and not wanting to say the wrong things. And so we've been thinking about this for a while now, and then an advisory board member brought this back again last year as a proposal for Train the Trainer. This was 2 members actually, and this was taken up by the board. And so we thought about this as we were thinking about data academies, and data academies are meant to be more on-demand resources so that people who are not in person, to this point about virtual or just accessibility more broadly, can learn about C2C, that we wanted to make sure that we had our hands in this, cookie jar, essentially, as we're building this out. And so we've been thinking about that very deeply. And we've talked to the governing or the advisory boards. We talked to you all about this. And so that's where the work has spurred. So I've been tinkering in the back end, and I shared out 6 modules for what this could look like from the beginning of, and it's basically the foundation to where we are now, where we're talking about mission and vision and 18-month planning process, to the tools, the query builder, the dashboards, making sure that people know exactly what is available to them, because these people are champions and they're champions in their communities. And so it's really an important thing for us to be able to go into these communities, but it matters even more when your own community members are sharing the word about C2C. And so that's where we're trying to get to with this work. And I just want to give a huge shout out to Mary Kate's team in particular. Sophia Aguilar is on this call, and also Ronnie Jones, who has been helping us. They are working through a year-long planning process with the working group. We have 5 former advisory board members who have signed on voluntarily to do this work, to make sure that we are actually spreading the word, that we can pressure test what's working, what's not working, hear from people directly, so that we can really build out what a sustained infrastructure looks like. So that's happening. You'll hear this. We'll be providing more information. I'm not sure which governing board meeting. It's a whole plan. Mary Kate has a whole plan. It's all scheduled out. But you will be hearing about this soon. But it is very in-depth, very involved, and I'm really excited about it. It's going to be a really good program. But it is taking time because the curriculum is really involved, and Mary Kate and her team are doing a really good job.
I want to thank you for your leadership along these lines, and I'll uplift a couple of points there, and then share a couple more thoughts on why I think at this particular juncture, this is an important initiative for our office. One, I really wanted to emphasize the importance of the team's response to feedback from the Community Advisory Board. Hearing an idea germinate and then incubating it and thinking about how we could operationalize it from beginning to end. I think that's the heart, going back to my colleague Ana Luz's point, sort of the heart and soul of what engagement's about, right? Really listening with empathetic ears and eyes and all of that to the needs of our stakeholders and the desire to contribute to this initiative. And then figuring out a way to operationalize and channel it towards really productive ends. So I think that's a great example of this. And formalizing and honoring the fact that there are a lot of people beyond those in, here on the governing board and on our advisory boards who feel really connected to this work and have not just a stake, but a great deal of investment in the success of this program. And the more that we can do that, right, the more that we can harness this energy and empower those on the ground to make a contribution, I think the better. So I applaud the group for thinking about it. I also want to point out, since you mentioned the Datathon at the EdTrust West Ed Equity Forum, I want to thank Member Nellum for your ambassadorship and leadership on the board as serving as our liaison as well, and for this particular opportunity to help create some synergies between the work that EdTrust West is doing and the work that C2C is doing. And then lastly, and this is the point I wanted to broadly make and why I wanted to uplift this case study, if you will. 5 years ago, over 5 years ago, when we first started this work, you look at the data quality campaign and, they labeled California as having one of the worst, if not the worst, systems in the country. Fast forward to where we are today, and it's a leading example of the kind of work that all states should be doing in our union. And that doesn't happen by accident. It happens with a lot of strategic thinking and intentionality and hard work around the work that we're all collectively doing. And I say that because now this office, this governing board is really institutionalized. So when we first started, it was an idea and it was something that who knew where it was going to go. We're now at a point where it is institutionalized. We have some successes and wins upon which to build, and we've got a new strategic plan moving forward. We remain, entrenched in a variety of different challenges, but I don't think there's any doubt that this institution is here to stay and a force to be reckoned with. At the same time that it's become institutionalized, there's still the heart and soul of working with people on the people's data, which is the work that you're all doing. And this notion now of trying to empower more people in the field to help carry out this work for us, I think is a great example on both fronts. And we got to do it on both fronts, right? So I know it's a heavy lift for the team. I know it's a heavy lift for the board, but I think it's crucial for us to continue to demonstrate the value that we're bringing for Californians in this state. Thank you.
Thank you, Members Gorda. I think I teased earlier other duties as assigned. Please think about this work, especially in your ambassadorship role as you're thinking about sort of your own agendas for helping move the work forward in the next year or so. Member Moldoff.
Jessica Moldoff, California Student Aid Commission. I'm definitely interested, excited about the data walk, data academies. Am I to see through the lines, data academies means like more data literacy initiatives? Yeah, because I think that's a really crucial thing, like having been in the work of detangling our own new dashboard that we're trying to produce with the SB 70 data. It's crucial that people don't just have access to dashboards, but really understand what the dashboard is saying and what it's not saying. Because there are certainly numerous examples of people misusing data, using data to misrepresent things. So I think anything that the office can do to really incorporate that is really important, not just to have the learn from the community as you all do so much, but also making sure that the community is itself learning and becoming a better user of the data going forward. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Looking at the screen as well. Okay, marvelous. Thank you both very much for that presentation. We're looking forward to a lot more and helping you a lot more as we go forward. We're running a little bit early, and as we do, we like to call audibles when lunch has not yet arrived. So if we could please, if you'll bear with us, if we could please just move to item 10, which is the consent calendar. And you need to give me a moment to get to it on my notes so that I can talk about it sort of legitimately. The consent calendar is items that are essentially consent. They're ministerial minutes are on the consent calendar and a number of other things like that. That's item 10 in your book. If it's all right with folks, I would love to entertain a motion to approve item 10, the consent calendar.
Jessica Moldoff, so moved.
Moved by Member Moldoff. Can I have a second, please?
Robert Tagord. Second.
Second by member Tagorda, please. Thank you. Is there any discussion of the consent calendar? By members? Okay. Discussion by members of the public. Anyone in the room that would like to discuss the consent calendar? I do not see anybody in the room. Stephanie, could you open up the Zoom, please, on item 10?
Yes, for members of the public who wish to make a comment on the consent calendar, please raise your hand at this time. Okay. Pausing and seeing no raised hands, that closes public comment.
Wonderful. There's a motion and a second and an opportunity for public comment. Could I now please have call of the roll?
Chair Payne,
Aye.
Vice Chair Tagorda,
Aye.
Designee Upton Villa for Member Cabalden,
Aye.
Member Cifuentes, Member Cifuentes, Member Elias,
Aye.
Member Evans,
Aye.
Member Ferjueli,
Aye.
Member Gonzalez Vasquez,
Aye.
Member Hetz, Designee Roderick for Member Irwin,
Aye.
Member Jez, Member Lee,
Aye.
Member Moldoff,
Aye.
Member Nellum,
Aye.
Member Romero, Designee Rika Cheska for California Health and Human Services, Member Skull,
Aye.
Member Soublé,
Aye.
Member Sullivan, Member Van Natten,
Aye.
Member Vu.
Aye.
For the clarity of the record, we have 16 ayes.
Wonderful. Motion passes. I'm going to sort of take the privilege of the chair and adjourn us. Oh, we actually need to do general public comment. My apologies. So as is customary, before we take a large break like lunch, we do a general public comment opportunity. If any members of the public would like to comment on anything that is not on the agenda, please do so now. I'm scanning the room to see if there's any general public comment. I see none. Is there anybody on the Zoom, Stephanie?
For members of the public wishing to make a general public comment, please raise your hand at this time. Okay, seeing no raised hands, that closes general public comment.
Perfect. Seeing as how there is no public comment, that item is dispensed with. We'll now take the opportunity to take lunch. It's not quite here, so we'll give ourselves a little bit of grace of extra time. And if folks can plan on being back by, it's 11:53 now, folks can plan on being back by 12:45, that would be wonderful. Thanks very much. Welcome back, everyone. I trust everyone had a wonderful lunch. In order for us to get going, we need to reestablish the quorum. So Stephanie, could you please call the roll?
Chair Payne,
Present.
Vice Chair Tagorda,
Present.
Designee Upton Villa for Member Cabalden,
Present.
Member Cifuentes,
Present. Oh, present.
Member-
Can you hear me? Present. Okay.
Yes, thank you. Member Elias,
Present.
Member Evans,
Present.
Member Ferjueli,
Present.
Member Gonzalez Vasquez,
Present.
Member Hetz, Designee Roderick for Member Irwin,
Present.
Member Jez, Member Lee,
Present.
Member Moldoff,
Present.
Member Nellum,
Present.
Member Romero, Designee Rika Cheska for California Health and Human Services, Member Skull,
Present.
Member Soublé,
Present.
Member Sullivan, Member Van Natten,
Present.
Member Vu.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Marvelous. Seeing as all the video is going, we have everybody connected. Everybody's here. We are moving on now to agenda item 6, presentation and preview of the report to the legislature and demographic survey. I will invite Shannon Serrato, Director of Engagement, to present this item.
All right. Good afternoon and welcome back, members. As always, I'm Shannon Serrato, the Director of Engagement here at Cradle-to-Career, and I'm glad to be with you today to discuss C2C's FY 25-26 report to the legislature, as well as this year's board demographic survey. So as mandated, next slide, please. In Education Code 10866, the office is required to submit regular reports to the governor and the California State Legislature related to the implementation of the data system. And as we commemorate the office's 5th year of implementation, this year's report will not only document the progress made during FY 25-26, but the first 5 years of the office, as well as what lies ahead. We submit this report annually to the governor and the California State Legislature on September 1st. And so in lieu of the final report, I'm going to provide a high-level overview of C2C's work. Next slide, please. And I will also say that in lieu of providing a very, I don't want to say redundant overview at this point, but we've talked about this already. This is a more stylized version of the by the numbers that we've talked about before. Last year, I presented many times before, big, bold numbers, big things that the office has been doing. But we heard from folks that, you know, it was great to see those things, but we really needed to have a narrative, somebody to tell that story along the way. So we really wanted to take that into heart and iterate on that. So again, you'll see here, this is throughout the report. It's throughout the entire ledge report that we're creating this narrative of first 5 years, but this is just a reproduction of that. So we'll have this available and we'll post it online to share just as something splashy, but this is a reproduction also of the document that you have on your desk. So you have scratch paper and there's also just a little timeline. This is very much reflective of that. So just want to acknowledge that this is just a pretty slide, but you've been hearing this story all day today. So just want to share that the report will be ready soon, September 1st, and we will share with you once complete. Next slide, please. Okay, moving on to the demographic survey. If you have been at an August governing board meeting in the past, this is typically where, This is typically where I also share our demographic survey information. And so as written in statute, C2C's governing board is intended to reflect the cultural, racial, geographic, and economic diversity of the state. It is important that C2C's boards represent not only the key stakeholders of the California Cradle-to-Career data system, but also the wide range of Californians that we are charged with serving. So in 2022, the office received a request from a member of the public seeking the demographic information of C2C's leadership, and following approval from the governing board, the office has facilitated collection of that demographic information. In 2023, the office expanded to include C2C's advisory boards, and we are now in the 4th year of this survey. The survey asked members about race, ethnicity, and gender, as well as lived experiences. All responses were self-reported and collected anonymously via survey, and that information was aggregated for the purposes of equity and transparency and will be posted to the C2C website. We issued the 2026 survey on July 7th, and we had an 86% response rate from this governing board, acknowledging that membership has been in flux during the time that the survey was issued. Separately, we had a 100% response rate from the Data and Tools Advisory Board and an 87% response rate from Community Engagement Advisory Board. Again, we will post all responses in aggregate to the C2C site after this presentation, and I'm glad to share preliminary results from the surveys now. So next slide, please. So you'll see this is a slight change from the way that we've been showing the survey results now in our 4th year. I wanted to show just how membership has evolved and changed over time. So on this first slide, you will see information around gender for our governing board. So a reminder that all responses shown were provided and self-reported. So for this year's survey, 8 members of C2C's governing board identified as female, 10 as male. Next slide. In terms of race and ethnicity, 4 members identified as Latino, Hispanic, including Mexican American, 3 members identified as Asian American, including Vietnamese, 2 members identified as African American, 1 is multiracial, including Black and Korean, and 8 members identified as white or Caucasian, including Polish. Next slide, please. Turning to our advisory boards, again, we've asked our Data and Tools Advisory Board members to self-report on race and ethnicity and gender. And this year, 10 respondents identified as female, 4 as male, and 2 identified as queer, gender fluid, or non-binary. In terms of breakdown by race and ethnicity, 3 members identified as Asian, including East and Southeast Asian, 5 members identified as Latino, Latina, including Hispanic, 2 members as multiracial, multi-ethnic, and 5 members identified as white Caucasian, including white Ashkenazi and white Jewish. 1 declined to state. And then finally, turning to our Community Engagement Advisory Board, in 2026, 7 respondents identified as female and 6 as male. In terms of race and ethnicity, 2 members identified as Asian, including East Asian, Southeast Asian, 5 members identified as Latino, Latina, including Hispanic and Indigenous Mexican, 2 members identified as African American, 2 identified as American Indian, Native American, and 2 members identified as white or Caucasian. So I'm glad to turn it back over for member deliberation today, but I just want to thank members for your participation in this year's survey. While it may seem like a small act, ensuring that the voices of Californians are all represented is the core of my team's work. And we've been able to use this survey over time to shine a light at who has a seat at the table and who can make a difference. And so with that, I'd like to extend my gratitude again to you all for taking the survey, and I'm going to hand it back to Chair Payne.
Thank you, Shannon. Are there any questions or is there any discussion by board members? We have approximately 10 minutes. Yes.
Obtained via, and just want to share, really excited to see the report to the legislature. I know that it's a mandate and not really, it's a requirement, which is often lots of time and work on your part. But I think it's an incredibly effective tool, not only to promote the great tools that you all share and to remind members that this is also a great tool for evidence-based policies when they're looking at policies during the interim that they can really utilize and start digging into, and also better understand their own district. How you break it down district by district, it's incredible. So really thank you for your work, and excited to see that report come out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Upton Villa. Others? Scanning the Zoom as well. Okay. Thank you, Shannon. Appreciate your time on that one today. So if we could now please move on to agenda item 7. So we're going to move on to discussion, public comment, and possible action on the budget change concept and 12-month work plan. This will be a 2-part agenda item. Part 1 of this agenda will focus on the proposed budget change concept, and I want to invite Leslie Taylor to begin this presentation. For members of the public wishing to comment, I'll repeat this one more time. First, we will discuss and vote on budget matters. Second, we'll vote and discuss on the work plan. And so for your comments, if you're planning on them, please plan accordingly.
Great. Thank you, Chair Payne. Leslie Taylor, Director of Operations. Good afternoon, board members and members of the public. Great to be with you virtually. I'll get us started today with the budget context and opportunities for this year. Next slide, please. By way of background, I'll start by reviewing C2C's budget for the prior year. In fiscal year 2025-26, which ended on June 30th, C2C had a $15.249 million budget in ongoing resources, plus $500,000 in one-time resources to support the development of the Career Passport. Next slide. The new Budget Act for the current fiscal year that began on July 1st, 2026, provides C2C with an operating budget of approximately $16.6 million, of which $15.251 million is ongoing and $1.337 million is one-time. To unlock the one-time funding, C2C has submitted the required expenditure plan to the Department of Finance for their approval and prepared personnel action requests to hire staff positions. Next slide. Each year, I like to take some time and take the opportunity to zoom out a little bit and just review the context of the budget cycle. Data providers in the room, you'll be very familiar with this. This is primarily for members of the public, folks who might be less familiar with the state budget cycle. So just a quick run through. The state fiscal year runs from July 1st through June 30th. So today we're very early on in fiscal year 26-27. This is the time of year when agencies and departments review their baseline funding to determine whether additional resources are needed for the next fiscal year, beginning July 1, 2027. So we're looking into that crystal ball a little bit, trying to project what next year will look like. The initial request for resources is a budget change concept. Then agencies will work with departments to prioritize those concepts and to develop the initial ideas into budget change proposals that will go to the Department of Finance for consideration in the governor's proposed budget, which gets released by January 10th. In the months that follow, the legislature will hold budget hearings, during which requesting departments will present their proposals and answer questions from members. The governor will release the May revision to the proposed budget by May 14th, and by June 15th, the legislature must pass a balanced budget bill. So that's that typical annual cycle, just a quick overview. Next slide, please. Each year, finance issues a budget letter for budget policy that essentially tells departments what types of budget requests will or won't be considered for the preparation of the proposed governor's budget. And we all know in November, Californians will elect a new governor to take office on January 4th, 2027. So this year's budget policy letter asks for only workload and necessary technical requests until the new administration provides subsequent direction. Next slide, please. Okay, so C2C's budget strategy for the upcoming year has 4 parts that recognize the opportunities and constraints of a transition year and the fiscal environment overall. First is to make a workload-only budget request that meets finance's budget policy criteria. Then work to convert the one-time funding we received this year for Workforce Pell to ongoing funding, and prepare transition materials for the new administration. This is a regular activity for all state entities. Number 4 here is something that's new for the board, this being our and your first gubernatorial transition as a board, formalizing your resource priorities separate from the first 3 strategies that the office leads. The board has the opportunity to take action on 2 of these items today, number 1 and number 4. So the workload-only budget request, and then a policy paper articulating resource priorities for the data system. Next slide, please. So I'll describe a little bit about the workload-only budget request that we've drafted. Today, this takes the form of a budget change concept for your approval to be finalized in collaboration with GovOps leadership and finance. The budget change concept is provided as attachment A to the staff report for this item. Within C2C's position authority, internal legal and information technology capacity are 2 gaps that pose significant organizational risk. For legal workload, C2C has only 1 established position for the dual role general counsel and chief privacy officer. Since this position was authorized in 2021, both the office staff and the number of data providers have doubled, as we've seen earlier in discussion today. The office needs a permanent ongoing solution to mitigate this key person dependency and proposes an attorney for role that can focus on privacy and complement the general counsel's capacity. Related to this, the office proposes to reclassify the general counsel role to associate the position with the same bargaining unit as the requested staff attorney position they would supervise. It's a little bit more of an administrative action. For IT workload, the position planned as the system administrator was swept pursuant to the control section 4.12 of the 2024 Budget Act. That reinforces the interagency dependencies we have and leaves the office with no internal IT service and support. So we're proposing an IT specialist 1 position to provide the support, as well as to run a service desk for the technical teams of our data providers who are navigating the data security procedures when they submit data to C2C. The cost of this request is approximately $500,000 ongoing. Next slide, please. Thank you. That concludes, actually, let's stay here. That concludes my presentation for section 1 of this item, and I'll ask Chair Payne to please guide members through questions and deliberation.
Sure. Thank you, Leslie. I hope it's been clear. We've sort of created a multi-tiered item here because of this notion of transition. I may call back up for later discussion. So slide 129, which was sort of that list of those 4 things that we have on our plates. We have to comply with Finance's request. We want to comply with Finance's request on the technical aspects, but we also want to spend some time to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward in this transition period with ideas about how the system itself can be grown and expanded and that kind of stuff, so that kind of knowledge doesn't fall on deaf ears as the transition takes place. And so this is the first item of that. On the budget change proposal, I just wanted to check in with members to see if there are any questions or concerns on just that first part that Leslie has outlined. Perfect. Scanning also for the Zoom. No hands raised. That's perfect. Thank you very much. So now I want to move the conversation onto the proposed budget change concept. And as we heard, the transition year is a little bit different. We want to take the opportunity to create our own record of our own priorities that we believe the data system should be resourced to accomplish. You saw that in your board materials as well. And so by taking action through the proposed resolution today, we're creating an artifact of shared language that can inform the next administration's understanding of our priorities and shared goals going forward. With the support of Executive Director Bates and the office, who reviewed many hours of our deliberations from previous meetings in especially strategic planning meetings. Attachment B to the staff report on this item is the proposed resolution and policy paper. So what you see is the C2C Jobs and Opportunity Hub. There are sort of 3 big concepts that we want to put forward into the conversation that's going to happen with a new administration. The first is the C2C Jobs and Opportunity Hub would release data reports and be responsive by releasing custom data cuts that would meaningfully change the data and information Californians can use to inform their decisions about which education and career paths to pursue. The why for that is it answers questions only C2C's data can, and avoid reinventing the wheel of data sharing agreements and use what the state has already built in C2C to be flexible and nimble for many, many purposes. The second big bucket, the what of that is the Data Insights and Research Gateway, which you see there. It unlocks potential data insights via multiple modes so that California can put that information to use. Open data files for public analysis, responsive data reports, secure environments for state analysis, impact evaluation via the C2C Secure Data Enclave, which we're, as you know, building right now, linking data to unlock resources, and the C2C Research Library. There's so much that is in that already and will be in that as we continue to move forward. The why for that is C2C has the linked data, the technical infrastructure, the proper privacy policies and legal agreements already in place, so it can continue and increase partnerships with California's universities to conduct detailed analyses and research preserving C2C's identity as the neutral source of trusted information, which, as you know, is a pillar of the work that we just completed in our strategic plan. So the next big bucket is the Data Privacy and Security Accelerator. And this really sort of came to mind recently. And I think, Jessica, it speaks to some of the information that you were talking about earlier and some of the need that you were talking about earlier. The what of that is to enable more state entities to implement privacy-enhancing approaches by scaling, testing, and piloting advanced privacy-protecting technologies and practices, such as all the things that we've built over the last several years: data suppression protocols, noise infusion, and I had to ask what that meant, synthetic data sets, and tokenization. And we've had that as a topic in our board meetings before. The why for that is to create more research opportunities while underlying data stays in C2C's secure environment. It allows us to champion emergent technologies and practices for state partners to increase their security and reduce risk across the entirety of the domains in which we find California. So that's the sort of the big sort of three-piece bucket that we want to put into the conversation around transition. We have about 10 minutes allocated for questions and member deliberation on those buckets. And I'll open it up to the floor. Member Vu, did I see you raise your hand?
I'm going to let someone else go first.
Okay.
I'm happy to, since you just called on me. No, I think.
Well, I just thought you raised your hand. I'm sorry.
I was scratching my eyebrow.
Watch out for the signals. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
exactly. No, I think this is, it's so valuable and so important. Just not only showing the new governor, whoever that person may be, the value of the C2C and the work that we're doing, but all policymakers, right, state and federal, from either side, from either party, or even students and families. It's last few years, we've seen so many people, policymakers concerningly, questioning the value of higher education and asking us to show that, higher ed is worth it, and showing that, there's an ROI, a positive ROI for students. And, I think the work that the C2C is doing really shows that. And there are other initiatives going on as well, but I think this goes beyond just, informing policy discussions in the state, but goes into, students seeing value in higher education again, and, policymakers making, critical, important, decisions impacting financial aid or support for higher ed. And the media and journalists
Right.
as well.
Right. Of course. Thank you. Other comments, questions, concerns? Yes, Member Nellam.
Member Nellum, I just want to make sure I understand. I have multiple windows open. So what happens if, am I right in understanding that these are priorities we'd like to communicate to whoever the incoming governor is? And if these things are not adopted or taken up by said governor, what would happen? I'm asking in particular about the data enclave, because I believe there's a pilot happening. So what happens if said governor isn't excited about this, or that doesn't get funded or supported? What happens to something like that? Or I know there was a lot of excitement around, or is some excitement around the tokenization technology. And so what happens if those things aren't taken up?
I'll ask Director Bates to respond.
Thank you for that question. I think the way that I would frame this is that this document that you're putting together is about bringing these opportunities to scale. So as you know, we have built the Secure Data Enclave. We procured it through NORC. Now, right now, our current budget allows for very limited numbers of seat licenses, and we have very limited staff positions to be able to process data requests from the outside, to be able to cut files in response to requests for people saying, I want an aggregate report on X, Y, and Z, as opposed to having access to it. So this is really about saying, with the current resources we have, it's not that our enclave will vaporize. We have built it, but it will take us a lot longer to get to the kind of scale that I think, as I'm trying to remember who said the words treasure trove, maybe it was Member Evans, the treasure trove of information that we are now stewarding. It'll just take us that much longer to get it there. Yeah. So I think that's the story to tell, is that some of the things on this list would be new. I think especially the data and privacy and security accelerator work would be about expanding the work and really having this be a collaborative cross-entity work piece. But all of these efforts, we have initial resources to get started. We don't have the resources to truly bring them to scale of what California deserves.
That's helpful. Thanks.
Thank you, Member Nellam. Part of what I wanted to see here on this item too was to tell a little bit more of a story, as opposed to saying we're doing these things, we just want more to do them, because that's the kind of thing a new administration expects. Just give us more to do more, right? The idea here is to put some framing around it so that they understand the value that's added to it and how that's additive to the process. Other comments, questions? Yes, Member Hetz.
Member Hetz, California Community Colleges. I have a question and a suggestion or an idea. The question is for the Privacy and Security Accelerator. Like one of the things that I think would be really important for that, for all of the data providers, is to be able to bring new data that is not part of the data set into that space, right? Because we have lots and lots of other data, and to be able to connect that to that space in a way that we don't have to go back and forth and do exactly the types of things you were talking about would be enormously powerful. So that's that's kind of like an asked for consideration. Like how could you make it so that we could bring, fair amounts of data in, maybe in the way that you're working with EDD and, the labor folks to bring that more directly. The suggestion I have is to consider this as, and I love the idea of this as a framing where you're looking for long-term solutions, because I think one of the other solutions that we can all work on is how do we bring resources to that problem? So along the lines that you were talking this morning about the data fellows, right? Like I can imagine ways in which we have embedded resources with the data providers who have expertise in using the data enclave and the security accelerator in powerful ways that then we can share with each other and be part of the conversation and a resource for the system. So I would just offer that suggestion.
Thank you. Would I be in trouble if I said yes and? Other comments or questions? Okay. So with that, we can move on to a situation where we have a motion. So it's a little bit complicated, but let's move on for that. Obviously, thank you for your comments and suggestions. For sections 1 and 2 of this item, the staff report recommends that the board move to approve the proposed budget change concept as specified in the staff report and authorize the office to finalize the request in collaboration with GovOps leadership and the Department of Finance. As you all know, the way the information flows is an interrogative process with those two agencies going forward, and so there may be some changes that happen as a result of that process. We've made similar motions in prior years on these, which means the motion contains the language that talks about to make any related changes to the final request. Secondly, to endorse the resource priorities and adopt the related resolution as written by the office. It is up on your screen. May I have a motion to approve the proposed motion? The proposed language, let me put it that way, sorry.
Vice Chair Tagorda moves.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Gonzalez Vasquez, second.
And I have a second. Perfect. Thank you very much. So I have the following speaker slips on this item. If I could please call up Melissa Bardo with Ed Trust West. Thank you for the speaker slip.
Thank you. I'm here to speak in support of several items on agenda item 7. First, we encourage the board to approve the proposed budget change concept as specified in the staff report. As C2C continues to expand its data partnerships and tools, we believe maintaining strong privacy protections, governance, and infrastructure is essential to ensure the system remains secure and sustainable as its capabilities grow. Second, we encourage the board to endorse the resource priorities document and to adopt the related resolution proposed by the office. The proposed Jobs and Opportunity Hub, Data Insights and Research Gateway, and Data Privacy and Security Accelerator reflect the promise of C2C as California's neutral cross-sector data infrastructure that improves government efficiency, increases stakeholder and public access to high-quality data analysis, and helps California answer important policy questions regarding education and career pathways programs. And as a co-lead of the Data for the People Coalition, we hope that you will, consider us a partner in your long-term endeavor to secure additional resources towards these efforts. And lastly, regarding the upcoming item on the strategic plan, we encourage the board to adopt the 2026-27 work plan. We're particularly excited to see plans for the teacher training and retention dashboard, the college and career data files, data academies, career passport, and inclusion of the early learning and care data. And we're especially grateful to Executive Director Bates and the office for hosting a community conversation to engage the public later this fall. So lastly, we just want to congratulate and thank the board for all of your work the past 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bartle. Really appreciate that. And we'll make a note too on the work plan item as we go. Thank you very much. Are there any other people in the room who wish to speak on and make public comment on this motion? Seeing none, Stephanie, can you open up the Zoom, please?
Yes, for members of the public attending via Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to comment on this agenda item. Okay. After pausing and seeing no further raised hands, that closes general public comment.
Marvelous. Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. We have exhausted public comment. Can you please call the roll?
Chair Payne,
Aye.
Vice Chair Tagorda,
Aye.
Designee Uptain Villa for Member Cabalden,
Aye.
Member Cifuentes,
Aye.
Member Elias,
Aye.
Member Evans,
Aye.
Member Ferjueli,
Aye.
Member Gonzalez Vasquez,
Aye.
Member Hetz,
Aye.
Designee Roderick for Member Irwin,
Aye.
Member Jez, Member Lee,
Aye.
Member Moldoff,
Aye.
Member Nellum,
Aye.
Member Romero, Designee Rika Cheska for California Health and Human Services, Member Skull,
Aye.
Member Sublé,
Aye.
Member Sullivan, Member Van Atten,
Aye.
Member Vu.
Aye.
For the clarity of the record, we have 17 ayes.
Thank you very much. Motion passes. I really appreciate the board's forbearance in getting us through a sort of a complicated item, which is usually ministerial, but because of the times we're in, had to be a little bit more complicated than that. So thank you very much for all of that. I want to now turn it over to Executive Director Bates to present the next part of this agenda item.
Thank you very much. So as you do each August, you have before you a proposed work plan for the fiscal year that we just started. It looks similar in some ways to work plans that you've approved in the past. The main change is that we organize the work plan this year, not by vertical, but rather by the 5 goals and the objectives that you voted on for the 5-year strategic plan just in May. So thinking back, last year's work plan, the one we reviewed earlier in the morning, focused on major data expansions, right, with the earnings data, the workforce data expansion, and some very impactful collaborations. And as we've been talking about, this annual work plan that's before you is really focused on using the existing data in the system today to produce data insights. So again, echoing back to Member Evans's comment about the treasure trove of potential data insights that we've now gathered, really focusing this year on getting as much out of that as possible. That's how the work plan is organized. We're really focused on ensuring continuity and maximum impact. So again, emphasis this year, build with the data that we've already assembled and really think about how this advances the 5 goals and the corresponding objectives from that multi-year strategic plan. All right, so now I'm going to highlight just a few things from each goal. I'm not going to read the entire work plan, don't worry. But you have this in your materials, members of the public. This is on our website in the materials for today. So under goal 1, right, being California's neutral, trusted source of linked statewide data on how education and jobs shape opportunity and well-being. We're really focusing on the entire 5-year anniversary campaign that you heard from Shannon Serrato. And we're elevating also a real emphasis on the research data request process and the continued build out of the secure data enclave. And as we've discussed in prior meetings, I want to emphasize that it will take a lot of work, including with our data providers around legal agreements and administrative work around being able to accept fees, for example, for this data request process. There's going to be a lot of work that continues this year on this, but we're really excited that the enclave is built and that we can start piloting that. So that's the main focus under goal 1. Moving on to goal 2. So remember, goal 2 is to create data insights and tools that Californians can count on. So this is really about complementing the existing data in the state by creating user-friendly products that display linked education, social services, and workforce data over time. So user-centered design features in this, really thinking about a variety of decision-making audiences. Basically, we want to help people make decisions, whether it's students across the state making decisions for themselves or people here in Sacramento making policy decisions. Focus this year, as we just discussed, transfer outcomes dashboard, teacher training and retention dashboard. And as we discussed earlier, also working on data reports that are a lighter lift than a full dashboard that can still bring the information into people's hands. Another important part of our work this year is also working on the workforce Pell efforts and the data linkages that are required for that, in partnership with the Student Aid Commission, of course. So that's the highlights from goal 2. Goal 3, this is all about providing equitable access to information and tools for all Californians. And the context here is that we're linking the people's data, so we have to make sure we optimize reach and making sure there's meaningful accessibility for people across the state. So really tailoring and targeting the tools for the state's diverse communities, including that data literacy work that Shannon was highlighting earlier. So this year's focus is going to include a revamp of the website, the data dictionary redesign, and I really want to highlight this. Dr. Heather Daniels on our team has been spearheading this work. A revamped data dictionary will make it a lot easier for members of the public, researchers, and data providers to know what data points have been ingested for what years so that people can really imagine the possible studies they could do or how to use the data. So this is a major lift, and I'm excited about the work we're advancing there. We're also highlighting, supporting our partners at the community colleges and the development of the new California Career Passport, and the revamped e-transcript is a big priority for us here. All right, that's goal 3. For goal 4, the goal here is to build a flexible and secure data system that continually adapts to the needs of Californians. And the context here is that we're really building in accordance with industry best practices of well-architected systems, so that it can be reliable and flexible. As you know, we adhere to strict security and privacy protocols to protect Californians' data, and that this work is really about enabling the rapid development of new high-quality products that are built on top of the data system, while ensuring that the data is protected and we're being in compliance with changing statutory and regulatory requirements. And so this is all about data validation. It's about secure data sharing. It's about the zero trust maturity process and cybersecurity that you've heard Dan Lamry present on in the past. So that's the highlights of goal 4. I also want to highlight and just voice over, this is kind of a cross between goal 2 and goal 4. The things that Member Hetz has highlighted, Member Maldoff has highlighted around our data providers' use of the data system, including that secure enclave, is a key component of this. So I mentioned earlier how we're wanting to pilot this with the labor agency. Open invitation to our data providers. We want to make sure this enclave is as useful to you as you would like it to be, with your staff being able to work in it as well. All right, goal 5. This is about optimizing organizational and operational culture. So this is about the office itself. With our small team and our modest annual budget, we have to really use resources effectively. And this means getting the right people in the right roles, prioritizing spending, and meeting the administrative and legal requirements that apply to all of the state entities. So this year's focus includes increasing legal and technology bandwidth, as you just discussed, and that budget change concept, recruiting and onboarding new positions to implement the workforce Pell and the data linkages required for that, maximizing our funding through impactful contracts and procurements, minimizing staff vacancies when they arise, and developing a research fee schedule. And again, that last bullet point is going to be a heavy lift and all of the processes needed to be able to do that through the state's procedures. I think it's important, it's in our statute, and it's the key to making this a sustainable and scalable process over time so that we can have not just a handful, but many researchers utilizing the underlying data. All right, that's a high-level overview of the annual work plan. And with that, this is the office's recommended motion, move to approve the 2026-27 annual work plan as presented. And I will turn it back over to Chair Payne.
Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion. Member Vu.
Yeah, Tom Vu, board member, I move to approve the 2026-27 annual work plan.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Was it Mr. Member
Nellam.
Nellam? Thank you very much. I will reference for public comment the previous comments already made by Ms. Vardo, and ask also for any other public comments in the room. Perfect. Seeing none, could I please have you, Stephanie, open the Zoom?
Thank you. For members of the public attending via Zoom who would like to comment on the agenda item before us, please raise your hand if you would like to comment. If we have more than 10 folks, speaking time will be 1 minute. Okay, I'm going to pause to allow any other interested parties to raise their hand. Okay, we have 2 raised hands. Sarah Lillis, I have allowed you to speak. Your 2 minutes start now.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Lillis. I'm Executive Director for Teach Plus California and co-chair of the California Educator Diversity Action Network. Thank you all for the hard work that you've done over the last 5 years. As the C2C looks forward to its next 5 years and approves this work plan, we're especially excited by the forthcoming teacher training and retention dashboard and having access to a connected view of the educator pipeline from preparation through placement and retention. We appreciate the board's commitment to designing this dashboard collaboratively with the Commission on Teacher Credentialing, the California Department of Education, the educator preparation institutions, and other higher ed partners. We truly believe that strong workforce data is essential for understanding not only where teachers are prepared, where they teach, but also which communities continue to experience shortages and how California can strengthen recruitment and retention strategies. As the board and staff begin designing this dashboard, we, along with our partners at the Data for the People Coalition, encourage the C2C to consider integrating existing administrative data already maintained by the CTC and the CDE that could further strengthen the usefulness of the dashboard. In particular, those embedded in the Data and Tools Advisory Board proposal, adding pathways and placement data to strengthen teacher workforce insights by Dr. Lisa Tanzarite. We think that these additional data elements are vital to California moving beyond understanding how many teachers are prepared to really understanding whether every student has access to a fully prepared and appropriately assigned teacher, where workforce shortages persist, and which preparation and recruitment strategies are producing the strongest long-term outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments?
Yes, Angela Estrada, I have permitted you to speak. Your 2 minutes start now.
Thank you. Hi, everyone from Cradle-to-Career's governing board members. My name is Angela Estrada, and I'm the Student Engagement Associate on Public Advocates Higher Education team. I connect students to our policy work and elevate their experiences to state leaders. I'd like to start off by saying congratulations on your 5-year anniversary. I am also here in support of Member Shack's 2025 proposal to expand the student homeless status data point. While we're disappointed that the proposal didn't make it into the work plan this year, we understand capacity and administrative barriers. Just want to remind folks that this proposal strongly aligns with the office's mission and strategic plan to build a trusted data system that brings meaningful data to the public. Students have repeatedly raised the issue of housing being the largest cost barrier to higher ed, and record numbers of students are experiencing housing insecurity and homelessness. Housing insecurity and homelessness is a timely issue for all Californians. The Office of Cradle-to-Career has an opportunity to lead in this area by breaking administrative silos and beginning to answer key questions about student housing insecurity and homelessness. Integrating data from the homeless data integration system will help us understand some of the long-term impacts of the state's housing crisis on education and career trajectories of Californians and identify ways to improve outcomes. The public can begin to build an understanding of housing insecure college students' experiences and whether or not they're being connected to county services and which institutions and counties are coordinating with students more effectively than others. Incorporating multiple data points from HJS will help us better understand which students are being served and by how many services over a period of time. Although the 12-month work plan doesn't include data related to social services, housing insecurity and homelessness is an urgent issue that C2Cs should consider. And we look forward to continuing to work with C2C to eventually adopt this proposal. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Stephanie, others?
Okay, seeing no other raised hands, that closes public comment.
Thank you. Members, with my apologies, I skipped a step, and the step was your own conversation and deliberations about the work plan. So please accept my apologies, and I want to open it up to the membership for your comments. Member Perjuelli.
Thank you. I'm glad to know we're permitted to ask questions. Member Ferguelli, University of California. I think this is a great and ambitious work plan. I just have one question about something new that appears on here, the workforce Pell data linkages. Do we know specifically what C2C's responsibilities are going to be for that role?
This is Director Bates. Thank you for that question. So the roles for the state in who's doing what on Workforce Pell were delineated this summer through legislative action, and that defined the Student Aid Commission as the main entity that's administering the Workforce Pell process. C2C's role is largely around data linkages, including to earnings data. Both through the application process, which CSAC will manage, and then overall for the state's work in defining which programs are eligible in the long term, where we can see earnings outcomes for people who complete these short-term programs. So that was a long-winded way of saying, think of C2C's primary role in Workforce Pell as being able to connect the earnings data for short-term programs at the state level and the longer term. So we've identified a number of staff positions and resources that relate to leveraging and maximally using the earnings records that we're stewarding on behalf of EDD and connecting that both to short-term programs for the purposes of Workforce Pell and more broadly within the data system as well.
Thank you. Other comments and questions or questions? Scanning the Zoom. Yes.
Member Lee, Senate appointee. There were a couple of mentions of the research fee and how much of a lift that is going to be. Just at a high level, curious if you could summarize why that is a heavy lift.
This is Director Bates. I'll try, though I'm the wrong person to summarize this in detail. The short answer is that when I read the statute, there's one sentence in it that says that we are permitted to charge a data request fee for research requests that come in. There are additional processes, though, on both the regs side, where we potentially may need to promulgate regulations as relates to that, or at the very least create a public have a public process around how are we determining how much the fee is today and in the future, what process is used for that. So there's kind of a whole process around determining how much of a fee we charge, because in lay terms, we should charge a fee that covers our costs It shouldn't be too little, but it also shouldn't be a profit center, obviously. So it needs to be commensurate with the value that an individual is receiving from the service we're providing. So that's on that side. And then on the budget side, which again, this is Leslie's domain, and we'll work closely with GovOps and DOF on this. There are complex procedures that exist within the state budget if there are different fees that are collected and whether that essentially is housed in one place or goes back to the general fund and comes back to us. So it's just, there are complexities around the process that need to be worked through the appropriate mechanisms that the state has in place. So it's not as easy as saying we have a line in our statute so we can post a fee on our website tomorrow and swipe credit cards and receive them, right? There's complex processes both in terms of determining the schedule itself and then having that be a part of the budget process.
Kimberly, I appreciate that. I would hope that there might be some best practices, especially given GovOps connection to other agencies and a lot of communities, particularly around sort of data-informed decision-making or whatnot that we could potentially leverage.
Yes, we will not be starting from scratch, and we'll be looking at what other state entities have already done.
Thank you. Other comments and questions? Yes.
Designee obtained via. I just want, looking at this plan, it looks great, and it reminds me how much of an impact C2C has across various different departments. And I think going back to the last item of the budget request and what you're looking at budget-wise, it's challenging for the legislature because your budget ask will go in front of budget sub 4. And that falls under government organizations and with that sole focus. And we don't hear from the other departments of just how much of an impact you all have, which is a disservice to you all just because normally when an item is up, you hear from other departments of the profound impact that a program will have. But because you're spread out across the various different budget subcommittees and not just sub 4, we don't always get that narrative. So I don't know if it's possible to have other departments uplift or recognize your budget ask and at least all the work that you're doing, but Senator Cabaldon will be doing what he can in terms of budget sub 4 of not only just recognizing what you're doing within the scope of GovOps and your department, but across all departments.
Thank you, Member Obtained via. The only thing I'd say to that, besides thank you, is reference my earlier comment about other duties as assigned in terms of board members. Thank you for putting that out there. Other comments on this item? Seeing none, even though it was out of order, we're ready to proceed for a vote. Stephanie, could you please call the roll?
Chair Payne,
Aye.
Vice Chair Tagorda,
Aye.
Designee obtained via from Member Cabaldon,
Aye.
Member Cifuentes,
Yes. Aye.
Member Elias,
Aye.
Member Evans,
Aye.
Member Ferjueli,
Aye.
Member Gonzalez Vasquez,
Aye.
Member Hetz,
Aye.
Designee Roderick from Member Irwin,
Aye.
Member Jez, Member Lee,
Aye.
Member Moldoff,
Aye.
Member Nellum,
Aye.
Member Romero, Designee Rika Cheska for California Health and Human Services, Member Skull,
Aye.
Member Soublé,
Aye.
Member Sullivan, Member Van Natten,
Aye.
Member Vu.
Aye.
For the clarity of the record, we have 17 ayes.
Thank you very much. Motion passes. Okay, with your forbearance as well, before we take a break, I wonder if we could just go ahead and move on to item 8. We've gone through a very complicated item. I guarantee you this one would be far less complicated. If I could please, this is item number 8. Discussion, public comment, and possible action on the inclusion of new data points in the P20 data set from the Department of Motor Vehicles. I'd like to invite Judy Chan, Deputy Director for Data Programs, to present this agenda item to you, please.
Thank you, Chair Payne. Good afternoon, board members. I'm Judy Chan, Deputy Director of Data Programs. I'm here today to provide an update on the work with the California Department of Motor Vehicles. Before I do that, I would like to acknowledge and thank my colleague, Dr. Nick Broughton, who's been leading the work with DMV and has prepared materials for me to share with you today. So state longitudinal data systems have the challenge of linking together information across agencies and sectors. The Data Quality Campaign, or DQC, and DISC, the Data Integration Support Center, publish a brief that highlights how driver license data can be used to help SLDSs in their matching process and enable states to better understand education and workforce pathways of individuals. Several states are already using this type of data, including Kentucky and Minnesota. Next slide, please. So the collaboration with DMV began as a part of an effort to solve the earnings data puzzle. This is the fact that we cannot reliably report earnings for people who only appear in high school data without other post-secondary education, training, or interactions with social services. This is a current limitation of our student pathways dashboard and one we're hoping to fix. Over the last several months, C2C and DMV have worked together to design a privacy-preserving method for exchanging data using tokenization. The tokenization system is designed to prioritize the security of sensitive data and ensures that no PII leaves either system. It can be used to validate data matches and also new data points associated with those matches, like zip code. So the vendor that we're working with has implemented a prototype demonstration of the system using synthetic data and simulated environments for C2C and DMV. We've successfully piloted the technology and the prototype showed that using the system, C2C and DMV can exchange information without directly sharing any PII. Next slide, please. The addition of DMV as a data provider will unlock improvements to the P20W dataset. The benefits include improved data matches and also zip code information that will enable new regional analysis. Together, these improvements to the data system will help us fill current gaps in the earnings outcome reporting, enable more accurate reporting of cost of living adjusted wages, and will facilitate analysis on regional mobility within California. The two new data points are being proposed for inclusion, and that are zip code and zip code effective date. So we have a motion in front of us. The office recommends that the board move to approve the addition of the California Department of Motor Vehicles as a data provider to C2C and to add the P20W data set to the additional and to add to the P20W data set the additional DMV data points as presented and the related resolution. I would like to hand it over to Chair Payne to open up for member questions and deliberation.
Thank you, Judy. Appreciate your time in presenting this. We have approximately 20 minutes allocated for member deliberation and questions. Do we have any questions or comments from members? Member Soublé.
As someone who spent, 12 years as general counsel at DMV, I want to applaud you for actually wrestling data from them. And knowing how they zealously guard everything, even down to zip codes, to find a way of doing that without, touching upon PII. I also spent a little bit of time setting up the privacy agency, and we sit at the crosshairs of providing data. At the same time, this focus on privacy. I just earlier this week, I signed up for the privacy agency's drop system, which is to get your personal information out of those 3,400 companies that are involved in selling your personal data. So again, I am really happy to see that we're able to link into that data without crossing that threshold of sharing the sacred PII. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Soublé. Other comments? Questions? Marvelous. Oh, yes, Member Vu.
Yeah, Tom Vu, board member, AICCU. Just a quick question. What is zip code effective date? What does that mean?
I'll turn to Judy on that to answer the question and its significance.
That's date related to a zip code that helps, that can be used for future analysis about mobility, potentially.
And that differs from like just the plain zip code now?
Well, zip codes are as of when there's a effective date for the zip codes.
So I have a question. I suspect, given that it's DMV, that it has to do with the date that they update their address for their identification. Because that's when the zip code would essentially be effective. I don't know that for sure, but Member Souble may know that.
They get it twice, annual registration data, and then from the personal basis, whenever, the 5-year cycle, when you update your information. So they have it historically. So they can track, over however many years they keep in the database, the zip code that you've had.
Member Van Natten.
Member Van Natten, what's in it for DMV?
Director Bates.
I cannot speak on behalf of DMV, and I do not want to try to do so, but I will say, in my experience having worked with their leadership, including their technology leadership on this, I see this as DMV wanting to facilitate what the state can learn from this with Cradle-to-Career. So that's part of why in your brief, you can see how we've worked to design this in a way that tries to burden the DMV staff as little as possible. Which is a reflection of the fact that, they will, I think, like all of our data providers, be able to over time learn from the data that's connected and the regional labor market analysis or, other things from that. But this is essentially a partnership where DMV is engaging to enable the state to enhance the records match and give us visibility as a state into outcomes for people who went to high school but not to higher ed, and really partnering on that. So I'm glad you asked the question because it provides the opportunity to lift up. This is really a collaboration that benefits the state as a whole through C2C, where DMV is agreeing to be helpful.
Well, I think it gets back to what Member Souble was saying. You all did a good job by, they don't have to do this, right? But they are obviously willing to do this. And I think that speaks to the collaboration. So double kudos.
Thank you. I think that's exactly right. It's when folks are trying to get to yes, things can happen, right? Thank you. Member Souble.
If I can add, I had a conversation with Director Gordon like a year ago, and he was excited about the possibility of providing data to C2C for DMV's own purposes. It does things with truck driving schools and educational programs. And the one things that they were saying is we don't have the data to know we're spending money on these resources and how good are they and how successful are we in doing it and should we be doing something else? So they if you think about how are they getting something from us, they're getting access to a data system that tells them whether or not the programs that they're initiating are actually working.
Marvelous. Thank you. Other comments? Member Lee.
Member Lee, Senate appointee. I also cannot speak for the DMV, but I thought it would be nice to share a brief anecdote we had over lunch. Someone saying you used to have to take a whole day vacation to go to the DMV to get your, things processed. And it was not the bastion of what local, state, et cetera, government interaction might be. And now you can go to kiosks, at whatever your convenient time is. And if you take notice of websites and community engagement, there are a number of improvements that people have noticed. So I think I wouldn't undersell the value of the leadership of our various agency partners. And so really appreciate this as an example of enabling Cradle-to-Career to do amazing things for our students and families and so forth. But also it can be a win for the partner as well, showing leadership broadly.
Thank you. I saw a +1 on the DMV itself. It's amazing the amount of improvement that's happened over the last several years. Yes, other comments and questions? Perfect. Can I please have a motion?
Vice Chair Tagorda moves.
Motion by Tagorda.
Board Member Soublé, I'll second.
Soublé, second, please. And now we will move to public comment, if we could, please. Anybody in the room that wishes to make a comment on this? Anybody on the Zoom?
For those attending via Zoom, please raise your hand if you would like to make a comment. Seeing none, that closes public comment.
Marvelous. We have a motion and a second, and we have public comment. Stephanie, could you please call the roll?
Chair Payne,
Aye.
Vice Chair Tagorda,
Aye.
Designee obtained via from Member Cabalden,
Aye.
Member Cifuentes,
Aye.
Member Elias,
Aye.
Member Evans,
Aye.
Member Ferjueli,
Aye.
Member Gonzalez Vasquez,
Aye.
Member Hetz,
Aye.
Designee Roderick for Member Irwin,
Aye.
Member Jez, Member Lee,
Aye.
Member Moldoff,
Aye.
Member Nellum,
Aye.
Member Romero, Designee Rika Cheska for California Health and Human Services, Member Skoll,
Aye.
Member Soublé,
Aye.
Member Sullivan, Member Van Natten,
Aye.
Member Vu.
Aye.
For the clarity of the record, we have 17 ayes.
Wonderful. Motion passes. Thank you all very much for that deliberation. And thank you, Ginny, for the presentation. We'll now take a break. It's almost 2. Let's go to 2:15, and we'll see you back here then. Thank you. Hey, welcome back from break. The hour of 2:15 having arrived. We are now moving on to agenda item 9. This is the presentation and preview of the Data and Tools and Community Engagement Joint Advisory Board's meeting and the Lesson Plan Challenge. So this is going to be a 2-part agenda item, beginning with a review of the Lesson Plan Challenge. Both of the lesson plans presented during today's meeting are available on the C2C website as educational companion materials to the Student Pathways dashboard. Thank you, Michael Cherzon, who's a senior data scientist for the Center for Educational Data Science and Innovation at the University of Maryland, College Park, and Dr. Jeffrey Yo, research and evaluation specialist with the UCLA's Center for Community Schooling. They are joining us today, and we will begin with Michael's presentation.
All right, great. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Great. So yeah, very much appreciate the opportunity to present on my lesson plan. Really excited to have been able to put it together and then that it was so well received. And big thank you to the team for both the great comments and then this opportunity to share with the board as well. And so yeah, as said, I'm Michael Cherzon. I'm the senior data scientist at the Center for Ed Data Science and Innovation. And so yeah, excited to talk a little bit about the lesson I put together, blending C2C with some other work I've done with Bellwether on a package called EdFinner, which handles ed finance data. And so we can go to the next slide. And so we can go through like to get all the, yeah, there we go. Thank you. Sorry. So I want to start talking a little bit about just like why I think the lesson matters. I don't think it's any surprise to folks in earshot right now that K-12 school funding is unequal, if not in most places inequitable. But students really are given the tools and empowered to investigate and interrogate why that is, and what are the impacts that has had on their own lives and the lives of people around them and that they care about. We know funding depends on geography typically, not actually need. And those gaps show up in student outcomes that California has seen fit to fantastically share in the C2C dashboard. And for many students, I'll say this is also personal, and it was something I was very careful to incorporate into the lesson plan. For first gen students, community college transfer students, all types of students who can see themselves reflected in this data and represented in ways that typically at systems levels they are not. I know for myself, getting into data science after leaving my teaching career, one of the first projects I did, I pulled data from Detroit, and one of the things that made that project super meaningful to me wasn't just that it was from data about my home. I realized about halfway through the project, not only was it about Detroit, I was in the data set. When I had X year that will not be named graduation rates, I was in there, not just like it's about home, but it's about me. And so I know from personal experience the power a lesson that can incorporate that has. Next slide. So what made the data set different? One, I'm connecting two very real data sets. This is not toy data that students are incorporating, and the lesson is designed to be sort of an intro to an intro course to really motivate students behind some of like why it matters that these tools beyond technical use are important to learn. And so dealing with EdFinner, which is again pulling data from national finance data, is paired directly with the C2C dashboard. Next slide. There's also zero R experience required. So the lesson, I tried to, as a former K-12 teacher, a AP computer science teacher, I know how useful it is when lessons have robust materials for me to draw from. And so I tried to put as many of those materials into the lesson as possible. So there's a fully guided R Markdown notebook that an instructor could use to run through the lesson to spark the conversations across difference, which is really one of the main goals of the lesson. But it is robust enough that teachers can pull back some of that code if they wanted to offer it later in their semester as well. Next slide. Uh, Equity is built in. It's not an afterthought. It's not a question to just be answered at the end of the lesson on an exit ticket. Throughout the entire lesson, students are sort of engaged with these questions about who is in this data, who is not in this data, why might that be, which are really difficult questions that don't come with right answers all the time. But it is important that we sort of sharpen the iron of students and having them engage in those conversations. And then last but not least, next slide, it's asset-based. So the lesson is designed for students to not see these as this community is deficient in that sort of comparison, but to really think about what are the systemic barriers that are mechanistically leading to these outcomes in ways that they might be able to be adjusted, that especially at the start of an undergraduate or graduate career, students could then take and hopefully maybe really motivate them to make even bigger changes. Next slide. So the intended audience for this lesson is, like I said, an intro course that involves data, so an intro ed policy or data science, social science research methods. I could also see a potential like high school, maybe 12th grade course being able to do this. Since the coding piece is less required, but they will still need to run that code, so that's the only part. It's designed to, again, go across diverse students. I'd argue the more diverse a course is, the better the conversation sparked by this lesson would be. There's no prerequisites, as I mentioned. And then the best timing, I would say either like a week 2 to 4 anchor lesson to really motivate students for what they might learn in a course and see. Or if an instructor sort of peels back some of that code, if students have more basic R skills, then sort of more of a week 8 to 10 if they're on a quarter system, something like that. And so next slide, last one. Yeah, just thank you. I'm really excited to have Funding Futures out there. There's a link to a GitHub that has all the materials that I mentioned. A better man than me would have included some of the visualizations that the lesson has in this presentation. So I encourage you all to go check those out. I think they're particularly nice and insightful. And so, yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cherson. That was wonderful. If I could now please turn it over to Jeffrey for your lesson.
Yeah, hi everyone, and thank you so much, Michael. It seems like a very, very interesting and fascinating lesson. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Jeffrey Yo, and I work at the UCLA Center for Community Schooling with our UCLA Community Schools. My lesson plan is called Understanding Education and Careers Through Data. It's a 60-minute ready-to-teach lesson that puts California's own Student Pathways dashboard directly into the hands of 11th and 12th graders. Why it's important? This lesson matters because it turns statewide data into something personal. Students don't just look at charts, they use the real C2C dashboard to find themselves in the data, which includes their district, their community, and people like them. And that's what I believe this personal connection is what makes the data literacy stick. My lesson also breaks the idea that there's only one correct path after high school. The lesson deliberately frames every pathway, so like the four-year college, community college, trade school, apprenticeship, military, or workforce, as a legitimate successful outcome. So for students who don't see a four-year degree in their future, that framing definitely matters. The lesson is also standards aligned and equity centered from the ground up. I incorporated like Common Core Math and ELA standards, Universal Design for Learning, and the California Educator Diversity and Equity Framework, so any teacher can pick it up and use it as is. So what makes it different is that a few things set this lesson apart from a typical lesson. First, it's built directly on the live C2C student pathways dashboard. It's not like a printout of numbers. Students can use the real filters, tooltips, and definitions of the C2C dashboard, the same tools a researcher would use. Second, this lesson teaches data ethics alongside data literacy. Students learn why the dashboard suppresses small groups of 10 or fewer, so they understand like data privacy, not just reading data. Third, the lesson is explicit about asset-based framing. So the data shows trends, not limits. We tell students directly that these numbers describe patterns across many students. They don't decide any one student's future. And fourth, personal reflection is built into the lesson structure. I have a worksheet in the lesson called Exploring My Post-Secondary Pathway, and it walks students from dashboard exploration to a dedicated section called Connected to You, where they connect what they saw in the data to their own next steps and the support they'll need to get there. In regards to the intended audience, my lesson is designed for 11th and 12th graders in a college and career readiness or advisory class. So these are classrooms that already represent every kind of post-secondary goal, from four-year university to community college, trade school, apprenticeship, military service, workforce entry, or those even still deciding. It's time for the moment students start planning. So maybe like typically the first semester of senior year, maybe right after they're weighing applications, financial aid, and training options. And because it only needs a computer or tablet with internet, it can run in any California high school. So, and furthermore, counselors can easily adapt the same activity for one-on-one advising conversations as well. So yeah, any high school, and I think if you go to the next point, it's beyond the classroom, right? California. So in closing, if you go to the next slide, my lesson gives students a chance to see themselves in California's own post-secondary data on the same dashboard C2C has built, and to leave the classroom with a clearer, more personal sense of what's next. And thank you so much for letting me present. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Dr. Yo and Mr. Cherson, on those informative presentations. That's pretty damn fascinating. Thank you. We have about 10 minutes for member questions for you guys and deliberation on this lesson plan challenge. Do I have any members with questions? Yes, Member Nellum.
Hi, Member Nellum. Just wanted to say thank you. I will admit I wasn't sure what this was when the office announced it, but I'm really excited by these now that I understand. Just in general, I think they're really, really interesting. And as someone who does teach, I could see using both of these. I think I just have a curiosity. Where did you all hear about this from? And what was your motivation to even do this? Like, why was this interesting to you? To put together a lesson plan.
I can go first, and Michael, you can come in after. For me, like in our UCLA community schools, we have a very strong interest of post-secondary outcomes and seeing how students not only graduate, but persist afterwards in college or whatever they decide to do. So we have thoughts about really thinking about how can we prepare these students to think about the high school transition. And for instance, in one of our schools, we focus on college readiness course that's like, as mentioned, like an advisory course. And we're thinking like, how can we prepare people to think about it in that way? And also think about the next generation, like data literacy is a really high key component of the future. And this is a great way to really introduce or expose students about not only post-secondary and like about their future, but also in a way that introduces them with data. So that's kind of the motivation. And we heard it. I think a friend of mine, she was very passionate. She's very passionate about higher education. She kind of showed me about this lesson plan challenge and encouraged us to submit and apply.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, similarly, heard about it through a friend in my master's advisors Slack channel, which functions as a form of social media for me. Find it to be much healthier scroll than TikTok. More productive. In terms of why I did it, I think part of it was I just having been both trained professionally as a teacher and was a professional teacher and master teacher for a long time. I missed planning a lesson, and so when I saw this opportunity, like, oh, this would be a cool way for me to like blend my new data skills with my old teaching skills, because I still have that sort of like teaching bug that needed to be scratched. Um, Also, I would say in particular. I think being able to combine those conversations of like really encouraging students to think across data um, does a lot of what just even the competition wanted from CTC to have students think about. And so, since the package was relatively new when I wrote the lesson plan, I believe, I figured it'd be a great way to sort of encourage students to think about, again, within C2C, who's here, who's not, why is some of the data suppressed from a sort of like data anonymization and privacy standpoint, but also thinking about moving across data, which I think is a really important skill for intro data students to think about. Of when I'm trying to investigate a phenomenon, what are the things I need to really like pull those conclusions together in some meaningful way. And so I just thought this was like a beautiful way to challenge myself to do that as well, and demonstrate it in a way for that hopefully new students and instructors benefit from.
Thank you. Others? Member Tagorda.
Vice Chair Tagorda, thank you again for your contributions to this lesson plan challenge. Have you had a chance to use it with students or maybe others beyond your immediate project group? And what have the responses been to the lesson plans and the data overall?
I'll go first because my answer is probably much less exciting. Unfortunately, not. I don't have a teaching capacity right now at Maryland, but the moment I do, I would absolutely use this for sure.
I mean, for us, this is something of great interest. So I think we're actually planning to pilot this in a way soon in one of our community schools. There's interest of that. So we haven't done that yet, but we'll see. I think there'll be a great interest, but yeah.
I would agree. I think there's going to be a lot of interest there. And I would even think for your thinking sort of ahead of time, there will be interest at grades even earlier than the ones you're anticipating now, especially as students, young people are sort of making the relevance conversations or having the relevance conversations for themselves about what they want to do and what they want to be. Those start much earlier. I have a hand raised with Member Evans. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Member Evans, California State University board member. First, I love both of the examples and the curriculum you both developed. I think at the sort of the use both of sort of the quantitative reasoning skills, but also data literacy is just super impressive, and it has direct benefit. Earlier in our board meeting today, we talked about celebrating the first Community Data Day next February. And I just wonder if this might be some model curriculum to embed that week. I challenged all of our post-secondary and our K-12 partners to think about how we recognize that across California. So appreciate the work that both of you put forward. I think this is a great example of how the data that this board and C2C are advancing can have practical uses in a variety of ways, not the least of which is for student family community planning. So kudos, and would love to follow up with both of you.
Marvelous. Director Bates?
Thank you so much, Executive Director Marianne Bates. I really appreciated the presentations. Thank you so much for sharing them with us here today. And I also want to lift up my colleague, Belicia Smith, who works very closely with me in our executive office. She's here today as one of the people running this meeting, because she really envisioned the full strategy for designing this lesson plan challenge, and it was incredibly intentional about how the lesson plan challenge was designed. And as I watched both of you present your lesson plans, it was just a full circle moment of what she had envisioned could be possible and what you've delivered here. It's just incredible. So I'm so grateful. I know it must have taken a lot of time for you to prepare these, and just incredibly grateful for that. And I'm excited that, she also had the foresight to invite you to present in this forum to our board so they can see this. And I'm super excited that we'll be able to lift this up on our website as an ongoing resource for educators to tap. So much gratitude to you, and want to lift up Belicia's leadership in spearheading this start to finish.
Thank you, Director Bates. Other comments from folks? Marvelous. Thank you both. This was incredible work. And I think, please know you're not going to go unnoticed. We're going to be promoting the hell out of this. Please excuse my use of the vernacular. Thank you again. If there are no other comments, we'll go ahead and move on to our next part of the item. Thank you both again. We'll move on to part 2, which is an update from the Data and Tools and the Community Engagement Joint Advisory Board's meeting. Thank you, as always, to Member Gonzalez-Vasquez and Member Nellam for presenting on this one. I'm going to call on Member Gonzalez-Vasquez first. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Chair Payne. Good afternoon, board members. As the Governing Board's Data and Tools Advisory Board liaison, I had the opportunity to attend the July 15th Data and Tools and Community Engagement Joint Advisory Board meeting alongside Member Lelom, the Governing Board's Community Engagement Advisory Board liaison. The meeting was highly successful and distinct from other advisory board meetings. This is the only opportunity or meeting that brings together both advisory boards. It was a unique opportunity for members to collaborate and to come together in community. Throughout the meeting, advisory board members were actively engaged. They asked really thoughtful questions and shared feedback on C2C's work and priorities. A key highlight from the meeting was a live mobile demonstration of the updated Student Pathways dashboard led by Ryan Estrellado. Advisory board members explored how to navigate and use the dashboard on their mobile device, building their confidence to leverage the tool and serve as ambassadors within their communities. To reinforce this role, members were given a call to action to share the dashboard with at least 3 individuals following the meeting. I shared it with my niece, nephew, and my mom. And their work will support C2C's 5-year anniversary communication strategy by showcasing how Californians are using C2C's tools to support informed decision-making in their communities. The meeting concluded with an opportunity for members to make a personal commitment to the work through an exit ticket activity. Members reflected on what commitments they could make to support the mission and vision of C2C to strengthen their collective impact and ownership of the work. Next slide, please. Advisory board members also had an opportunity to engage in the 2026 Advisory Board proposal process. The conversation kicked off with the annual data provider question and answer session. This session provided members with an opportunity to learn more about the data currently available through C2C, ask questions directly to the data providers about existing data points, and explore additional information that could help inform future proposals. As Chair Payne shared earlier, 9 data providers participated in the meeting. I want to thank everyone represented on this screen who participated and made this session a great success. We had many familiar faces join us for this session and a few new folks on the call. It even went over, if I remember correctly. It was so engaging. Advisory board members appreciated your expertise and valuable perspective. The information data providers shared will be extremely helpful in drafting informed and relevant proposals. Now I would like to pass it over to Member Nolam to conclude our presentation.
Thank you, Member Gonzalez-Vazquez. Thank you. Submitted proposals. Advisory board members had also had an opportunity to share new proposal ideas, identify areas of common interest, and explore opportunities to collaborate on joint proposals. In the past, advisory board members shared that having access to their approved work plan before submitting proposals would help them better align their recommendations with current C2C priorities. This year, the proposal submission deadline is open through August 19th in just a few days, which will provide advisory board members with the opportunity to review that work plan before finalizing their proposals. Advisory board members may choose to submit an individual proposal, partner with up to 5 other advisory board members on a joint proposal, sponsor a public proposal, or further refine a proposal from previous years. At the fall advisory board meetings on September 30th and October 14th, advisory board members will submit a proposal, or who submit a proposal will present their ideas, and all members will engage in deliberation focused on the potential impact and alignment of each proposal with C2C's mission, vision, and strategic priorities. Following the fall meetings, the advisory board members will have the opportunity to volunteer to collaborate with me and Member Gonzalez-Vazquez in a very exciting process to draft the advisory board proposal report, which will summarize the board's discussion and provide a high-level overview of all submitted proposals. So members, please feel free to tune in to the fall meetings, and I look forward to sharing an update at the November meeting. Next slide. The meeting that we had marked the final meeting for 5 data and tools and 6 community engagement advisory board members. And so on behalf of the governing board and the office, we extend our sincere gratitude for their time, expertise, and thoughtfulness to advocating to advance C2C's work. Over the past 3 years, these members who are on the screen have helped shape many of C2C's significant milestones and work. Their contributions have informed the continued development of the Student Pathways Dashboard, the Data Dictionary, the research request process, and statewide outreach efforts through data walks and academies. They've also submitted proposals that have directly influenced the office's work. For example, Member Fong's proposal on Cow Kids helped inform C2C's partnership and ongoing work with the Scholar Share Investment Board. Member Nguyen's proposal on mobile accessibility contributed to the updated Student Pathways Dashboard, mobile access capabilities, and Member Takagi and Member Gamboa's proposal to develop a train-the-trainer model has sparked important conversations about strengthening the role of advisory board members as ambassadors for C2C's work. While we recognize these individuals today for their service as advisory board members, we also have had the privilege to getting to know them as people. Over their time as members, we have watched many important milestones unfold in their lives. The advisory board members you see before you have retired. Some have started new careers, accepted internships, graduated from school. We've celebrated marriages and welcomed children into their families, and celebrated countless other professional and personal achievements. And so we look forward to staying connected to the work, and thank you and them for their commitment to the office's work. That concludes our update, and I will hand it back to Chair Payne for any member questions or comments. Next slide.
Thank you very much, both of you. We have about 5 or 10 minutes for member comments or questions. Could you please throw up that slide again? These are people we're going to really miss because they definitely contributed a huge amount to the liberations of this, the growth of this organization and the liberations of this body. So I just wanted to keep them up there to remind us. Comments or questions? Seeing none? We can move on, but I would like to issue sort of an invitation and admonition, other duties as assigned, that each of us make a commitment personally that we're going to participate and observe at least one of these board meetings, one of these advisory board meetings in the coming year and get to know these people going forward. So with that, we are finished with the formal business of the day. We need to now move on to the sort of last formal item, which is general public comment. That's item 11. As always, general public comment, I want to open it up to members and or members of the public to speak on any item that is not on the agenda, has not been on the agenda today. So first we'll do it with members. Any comments in general public comment? Seeing none, we can open it up. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to comment? I see none. I have no speaker slips. Stephanie, can you check on the Zoom, please?
Yeah. For members of the public attending via Zoom, please raise your hand at this time if you would like to make a general public comment. Okay, seeing no raised hands, that concludes this agenda item.
Perfect. So that just leaves us one more thing, and that would be adjournment. But before that happens, I want to thank everyone who joined us today, board members, presenters, the team, the office, members of the public as well. There was a lot of complicated material on the agenda today, and I really appreciate the diligence with which members brought the sort of pre-reading and the conversations. The board will meet again. This board will meet again on Friday, November 13th, Friday the 13th. As a reminder to members, please come ready to November's meeting to engage and reflect on C2C's 5-year anniversary and reflection questions. The next public meeting, though, will be the Data and Tools meeting on Wednesday, September 30th. That's your first opportunity to see them at work. And more information, as always, for upcoming C2C public meetings will be forthcoming on the website and by email. Now, if I could please, I want to adjourn the meeting at 2:45 p.m. Thank you all, and we are adjourned.